think there's going to be a lot of singing in this week's bloody episode, mate.
A little bit of singing?
Quite an anthemic.
Oh, right.
Yeah, loads of
definitely.
big tunes.
Definitely.
All over the gaff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Start with one now, is it?
Yeah, we can
Start making a song up?
making a song up.
Just make a song up.
Bieber Steve. Bieber Steve.
Renfrey and I in my living room. Press record on my mics and Zoom. Have a couple of cups of tea. Actually, Renfrey's drinking coffee.
Oh, wow.
There are many albums who the two of us need to review. We're both fans of alternative art. Episode 62 of Riot Act can start.
Don't tell me you came up with that off the top of your noggin.
I did. Well, yeah, I did, yeah.
Wow.
I'm like Eminem, but with pop music.
That was supreme talent. I just saw that.
Hello, I'm John Feldman. Welcome to Riot Act. My name's Stephen Hill. That's Renfrey Deadman.
Oh, yeah.
I did actually make it up on top of my head.
No, I do believe you.
I saw the coffee and the tea, and I thought, oh yeah, and that's
very good.
Like, I should go on Sonic Exploder and tell everyone how I made this. This is episode 62 of Riot Act. That's Renfrey Deadman.
Hello.
This week on the show, we are going to be reviewing new albums from the Menzingers. The number 12 Looks Like You, Renounced and Bodyhound. Plus, we're going to be stretching the boundaries of what punk rock is in trade-off as we talk about the emo titans, the kings of emo, taking off their crown and throwing it on the floor in disgust. Sunny Day Real Estate, and also the lunatic fringe of wacky hardcore from Death by Stereo.
I thought you meant we were going to be taking off their crown. I don't think we
take
are.
off their crown.
They kind of did.
No, I don't want that. And we'll be talking about Euroblast, which I am looking forward to. There's quite a lot of live reviews coming up this week, but that one in particular, I am very intrigued by this, Renfrey.
Oh my God.
Before we do that, we want to say a big thanks as ever to our friends at Musicism, who provide us with all this equipment you can see here. If you're on the YouTube channel, apart from my pictures there, that's my personal stuff. And you can go over to musicism.net if you want to become a better vocalist or guitarist or producer, and you can sign up for $9.99 a month. You can sign up to get courses which will help improve your skills. And thank you, Bonjour, for that interjection.
Thanks, Bonjour.
She's just saying correct. In cat. Look, straight away, do you know what? She's not come anywhere near me
all day
since I've been home, and then the second we start recording, she's up here like a little fruit. Aren't you, Boggies?
Maybe there's something in the Zoom that when we press record...
She loves the Zoom.
She loves the Zoom.
Bloody loves the Zoom. Come here. Oh, look how cute she is. You got to get on the old YouTube. Look at that cute head. Look at it.
I mean, she's fine.
Look how cute she is. Anyway, yeah. Go into the checkout and put Riot in capital letters in the checkout. This is Musicism, by the way, not for Bonjour. And
you can't buy Bonjour.
You can't buy Bonjour. She is a priceless thing. And you get 25% off. So thanks, guys. We appreciate that as ever. Do you want to chat about the Patreon stuff or the merch or anything?
We have Patreon. We have
really
merch.
Done anything.
Can you give us some reviews, please? We are big. It's kind of. I mean, it was my fault that we didn't do anything this week because I farted off to Cologne for Euroblast. Do we have an excuse this week? I'm going to a lot of gigs this week.
I really just... life is catching up with me quite a lot.
It is that time.
It's quite a busy time of year, so that's all, which is a shit excuse, really. But
it is a bonkers time of year, to be honest.
It's just been mad albums, and next week's going to be mad as well. So it probably won't be next week.
We are still catching up on... I mean, the three of the albums that we were reviewing this week are from a week, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So it's just a mad time. Please bear with us. We're getting there. End of. Bad time. Sorry.
Sorry, I had a sip of tea.
No.
The aforementioned cup of tea. We just want to say very, very quickly, get well soon to Will from Black Peaks. Black Peaks, unfortunately, was one of the gigs that I was looking forward to going to see was Black Peaks, who should be currently on a UK tour.
When this goes out,
and unfortunately, Will, many of you will know, has been not very well, and he's had to cancel the tour. The band have cancelled the tour because I think they did a gig in Brighton, and Matt from Haggard Cat, another mate of ours, came and stood in on vocals, which is great. But obviously, Black Peaks can't continue to do that. So get well soon, Will. Will's like, not often that we go, they're our mate in that band, but like Will called me and was talking to me about stuff, and he's really, we're worried about him.
I was speaking to him just over a week ago, and he seems really good. So it's just one of these horrible things where one moment it seems all fine, and then the next it's clearly not. So, and I would say as well, I mean, I don't want to like push anyone to do this, but if you are a Black Peaks fan and you want to help them out at this point, buying them a little bit of merch, buying a little bit of their merch or something like that is probably going to help tide them over, because I imagine that they'll lose a lot of money from not having to do these dates and stuff like that. So if you do feel like you want like a Black Peaks tee or something like that, now would probably be a good time to get it if you fancy it. So,
but most importantly, we just want Will to be all right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's, the most important thing. So I hope he's, it might be a while before we see Black Peaks again. We don't know. Like, we genuinely don't know. But Will, mate, I hope you're all right.
Yep.
Live reviews. Let's just go straight into it, shall we? Live reviews. Renfrey, you went to Germany.
I went to Germany, yeah.
Beautiful Germany.
I went I went to beautiful Cologne, which is lovely. It's very, very nice. Have you been to Cologne?
I haven't. I've been to Munich.
Munich's all right.
Which is the only place in Germany I have been to.
You're shitting me.
I'm not. No, why would I shit you?
We often get quite a lot of opportunities to go to Germany because metal in Germany is massive. Like, debatably, it's bigger in Germany than anywhere else in the world, I would argue.
Probably like Scandinavian countries. There's a few Scandinavian countries, I think.
Maybe. But it's certainly like, it seems to be really accepted in quite a mainstream sort of way in Germany, which is very, very cool. So we get to go out there quite a bit. And Euroblast is considered a very prestigious festival in the tech metal scene. I suppose it's fair to say. I'm going to do a really brief review for a couple of reasons, mainly because truthfully, a lot of the lineup is backing tracked core, which I'm not going to be very nice to, and I can't really be asked to not be nice to it here. And we've got a lot of other things to talk about, frankly. But there's also one performance in particular which I'm going to speak about at length. So just super, super briefly, I'm just going to go through a few highlights. So Between the Buried and Me played 2 sets.
Great.
And it was like across their entire discography. So they played a little bit of practically everything.
Oh, I like Between the Buried and Me.
Oh, they're just, I mean, how do you describe?
One of those bands that I don't think about that much, but when I listen to them or when they just pop up, hello, on Spotify or whatever, I go,
definitely.
We're great.
I mean, I will say,
Alaska Colours, that covers album's great. The Parallax one's so good.
I will say they are playing these sets in the UK.
Yeah, they are.
It will be next week when this goes out. So
I'm going to that.
You should go. You should definitely go, and maybe we'll do it more in depth then, because then we can both cover it. Because basically, they were fantastic, faultless to a T. We'll go through it properly then, but they were brilliant. So they headlined the Saturday night. Car Bomb, hello. Lovely fucking Car Bomb.
Can't wait to see them with those new songs.
Oh, they were brilliant. I mean, my only complaint, it was kind of their album release show, but my only complaint is they only played 4 songs from it. I was having a little chin wag with Greg before the show, and I asked him how many songs they were going to play, and he was like 4. I was like, sort yourself out. I wanted them to do like the majority of the new record. That said, it was still fantastic. They played like 75 minutes. I've never seen Car Bomb play that long. And 75 minutes of Car Bomb is like, whoa, I feel a bit sick.
Yeah.
It was the last band of the last day as well. And it might have helped that... I think one of the reasons Euroblast is often championed as a great festival by press is press get free beer and free food.
They tell you what, they fucking look after you out there, mate.
They really do, actually.
They really do. It's no myth. It is not a myth.
No, they really do.
Go to download bottles of water and a couple of Kit Kats, which I'm very grateful for. I don't deserve anything, really. But
I deserve free beer every day, I think.
But when you go to, I went to Metal Mountain in Austria, which is put on by the guys who do Varken. And I had this amazing hotel room. Yeah. And they were just like, go down to the catering and get whatever you want. And the catering was fucking ridiculous. It's like silver service shit.
Yeah.
Fucking mad.
Yeah, the festival looked after me very much. The hostel, not so much, but that's another story.
Okay.
Yes, Carbon were absolute, just frenetically fantastic and amazing. Ties from Nebula, I wanted to mention really quickly.
Yeah, good.
It just felt like after seeing a lot of really techie, heavy stuff with, let's face it, a lot of backing tracks, it was so nice.
Being his bonnet about backing tracks.
Yeah, just a bit. Especially after this weekend, fuck me. But it was really nice to see a band who were playing live. For starters, so there's 3 members of Ties from Nebula, and the bassist and the guitarist are also playing synths at the same time as playing bass and guitar, and they're basically just looping everything just to make it big and cinematic. They bring their own light show, which is very simplistic but works really, really well. I believe the day this goes out, they're actually playing the Underworld, and seeing them at the Underworld will be fucking amazing.
Are they?
Yeah, I would strongly recommend going. I would strongly recommend going. It was really... Do you know what? I like tech metal, right? Mm-hmm. But after seeing so much of it, it was really nice to see something that felt a little bit more human. And a little bit more cinematic.
Of a soup, doesn't it, tech metal? I mean, I saw Uneven Structure a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, they played.
Presumably, did you see Uneven Structure?
Bits of.
I thought they were pretty good.
You did want to talk about them, actually. Do you want to talk about them now?
Yeah, you can do. Well, I think they're pretty good, but I think the thing with this stuff is, I think you get a really good singer, and it makes a massive difference. That can be the difference between you being good.
Makes a difference if you get a really bad singer as well, as we're going to talk about soon.
If you get a really, really good singer, I think a band who just sound like most... I mean, look, like someone like Dan from Tesseract, right? Now, not to say that Tesseract don't write really good music or anything. I think as they've evolved, but Tesseract have always had really, really catchy vocal lines, really like interesting use of melody. And it's something which I think is one of the main reasons that's meant they've stood out from the pack. And I went to see Uneven Structure, and I'd listened to them on record, and I was like, yeah, like it's pretty good. Like I think I've got a higher tolerance to that stuff than you.
I think you do, yeah.
And there's a few of those bands that I like, who probably people don't usually talk about at all.
Sorry.
Yeah. That I still would listen to occasionally, but I didn't really expect to be that impressed by Uneven Structure, and I was, because I thought their singer was just had a great presence, and they kind of, and this almost doesn't sound like a particularly... It sort of reminded me of like a tech metal version of Soilwork. And after we were kind of ho-hum about the last Soilwork album and the last maybe 7 Soilwork albums, that maybe doesn't sound like a particularly big compliment. But actually, like Soilwork, when they're good, they're a really very good metal band, and they... Yeah. And so they wouldn't be in my top tier, but that's kind of how I feel about Uneven Structure as well.
Fair. I'm really glad you mentioned James from Tesseract. You mentioned Tesseract, I apologise, because I saw James at Euroblast, and he was having a lovely time.
Was he?
He
enjoys his life, James.
I think it's okay to say he'd imbibed a few beers, and he was having a lovely, lovely time. We went down to see Wheel together. You know about Wheel?
Yeah, they're the UK's answer to Tool, right?
Absolutely, they are. Although they're actually Finnish, although the lead singer is from the UK.
Right.
I believe. Anyway, lots of, this has been said before, this is not my quote, but lots of Undertow era Tool. Yeah. That's absolutely correct. And in terms of like how tooly they are, I mean, the influence is undoubtedly there, but good live, live particularly, the record's good, but live, like that, I think the Toolisms come from the drums, but mainly, plus the guitar, plus the vocals, maybe the bass as well. But
apart from that. Apart from that, being a 3-piece as well.
Totally their own thing.
Yeah.
But no, Wheel were really impressive, and one of the most packed second stage bands of the festival by quite a long way. I really, really enjoyed Wheel. I'd like to see them again. Are you okay?
I've got an itchy back.
Oh. We can stop if you'd like.
No. I'll just deal with it.
All right, fine. Hardcore you are.
I scratched my back with your pen.
If you'd like.
Because it's a place where I
better
can't...
get it back, as it was. I'll mention one more band before I go into the absolute shitstorm. The Hirsch Effect. Are you aware of the Hirsch Effect?
I know the name.
Hirsch Effect are one of these bands. They're from Germany, and they are they're seemingly really massive in mainland Europe, on the continent, and not very big here. And watching them, yeah, okay, that looks okay. My pen's fine.
I don't want people to see me like fucking chubby twats trying to scratch his back while you're talking. So please,
we could just put some Vaseline on the lens for that bit.
Can you just like pixelate me out while I was doing that?
Yeah, we'll go to the effort of doing that. The Hirsch Effect, I have no idea why they're not big in this country. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. 3-piece who just seemingly do a little bit of tech, a little bit of like post-hardcore, a little bit of everything, really.
A little bit of Monica in my life. A little bit of Mambo number 5.
Brilliant impression of the Hirsch Effect there. Yeah. They just... Like, there were times when it was really chaotic, kind of odd post-hardcore stuff. There were times when it was like 14-minute long proggy songs. There was one point at the end where they got an acoustic guitar out and a fucking cello. Bloody hell! Yeah, and they were big enough to headline the Friday night. So they were between the Buried in Me and Car Bomb level in Europe. Here, though, I mean, I was talking to people who were saying that recently they'd seen them at the Unicorn in Camden, and the Unicorn, for those who don't know, well, it's a pub, isn't it?
It's a pub.
So, and I was really blown away by the Hirsch Effect. I thought they were fantastic. So, just a little tip for you if you are unaware: the Hirsch Effect are fucking excellent.
Good.
However, the talk of the entire festival, of the Sunday, certainly, was the Harp Machine. Now, the Harp Machine...
were people harping on about it?
Hey, very good. Thanks. Oh, I've had to write notes on this because, my goodness, there's a lot to talk about. Really, this requires a fair bit of background context. So forgive me for a moment whilst I go through all this, but I do think it's important. So in January 2013, Heavy Blog is Heavy reported the dissolution of the Harp Machine with a headline that got straight to the heart of the matter, reading, "Everyone who isn't Al Moomin quits the Harp Machine." Mm-hmm. And this was just a year after they released their debut and currently only full-length album Disclosure. So Al Moomin is the only member of the band left in the Harp Machine, and since they've been a band, I think they started around 2008, I want to say. It has basically been Al Moomin since 2013, and there's been a number of different lineups since then, and it's been quite confusing as to what's been happening with this band for quite a long time. Yeah. For fans of the band, they've been a little bit like, what's going on? It's a bit of an enigma, I suppose. At the time when the original band basically all left, the vocalist Mike Semsky commented at the time, "Due to irreconcilable personal differences with our guitarist Al Moomin, the three of us, Alex, Ollie and I, have decided to part ways with the Harp Machine. This was in no way an easy decision to make, but the three of us feel that it is in our best interest to pursue other musical endeavours at this time. And Al Moomin responded in riposte, "My qualms with my former bandmates have very little to do with my alleged dangerous nature and more to do with musical direction. Yes, whilst I concede to my ardent detractors that I'm not the tightest of all players live, I should add the songs on the album are quite difficult to pull off in a live context. What? And I would honestly prefer a little support and positivity amongst my metal, in quotes, brethren. I wish you all a good day. Evidently, my day has been ruined by this loss, but I wish not for myself not to wallow in self-doubt and sorrow."
Hold on. So you're saying, I've written some songs and we've recorded them, but I can't really play them. But hey, come on.
Well, what's funny about that is he wasn't even responding. So allegations had come out that Moomin was unable to play his own songs and that he recorded the songs on their debut record Disclosure at half speed and then sped them up. Now, the fact that he was replying to a comment that didn't even mention that, and he's like, whoa, maybe I'm not the best guitar player in the world. He was just responding to a comment which was saying, yeah, we just can't be bothered being in a band with him anymore. It is a little bit like, you know, and
we didn't burn them.
Exactly. And, you know, of course, those are all rumours and so on and so forth. But do you know who produced the Heart Machine's debut album, Steve?
It wasn't Steve Albini, was it?
No, it was Al Moomin. So, so
Close enough.
No one's going to get to the bottom of whether those tracks were recorded at half speed or not. But considering he's not strongly denying it, because frankly, if I had recorded them at normal speed and people were accusing me of not, I'd be like, "Fuck you, I did," and here's the proof.
Yeah.
But the rumours don't stop there. He allegedly threatened to burn someone's house down after they had a few choice criticisms for him. Goodness knows what he's going to do after he hears this. And my God, I'm going to do everything in my power to get it to him. Because I really think that he needs to listen to what I have to say about his absolutely hideous performance.
Say, for the record, this massively, like, this is... these are rumours, by the way. So we don't know this to be 100% true.
Well...
Just to be like, you know, to be fair.
Yeah. But
we
the
don't
rumours
know this is true.
But the
Well,
rumours,
anyway.
the rumours that I have just cited are rumours that have already surfaced online on reputable news sites. What I will say is I heard a whole bunch of other rumours about Moomin on site, which I'm not going to repeat here because I can't vouch for their validity. But if half of them are true, we are talking about one of the biggest cunt sacks in the whole of the music industry. And you and I have worked with a whole lot of cunt sacks in our time, haven't we? And we are talking top tier cunt sack.
Really? Wow.
Oh my God. I mean, I mean, this isn't the most professional thing for me to have done in the world, but I was so intrigued after watching their set. I basically ended up following Al around backstage,
Oh my God.
trying to overhear snippets of his conversation, and I can vouch that he is a cunt. Oh my God, he's an unbelievable prick. So to the set itself, before the band even started, a Euroblast employee, who shall remain nameless, told me that the band had cancelled their appearance at the festival 3 times and then reinstated and then gone, oh, no, actually, we can play. So already they're, you know, leading, being a professional outfit, right, before they've even started playing. And the band come on and Al announces that he used to play guitar for the band, but now he's going to sing instead. Classic scenario when a guitarist decides that, oh, that's singing, Lark, I can do that. And this was the first time that most people had heard that there was a lineup change. Supposedly, the singer of Chokran, who were a band who played the day before, his name's Andrew, he was the vocalist, and 6 months earlier they'd had some sort of spat, and which is a theme that comes up quite a lot, and he is no longer their vocalist. I had a colleague of mine ask Andrew if he was looking forward to playing with the Heart Machine the next day, and Andrew just went, I'm not playing with the Heart Machine. Incidentally, Andrew from Chokran was rumoured to be side of stage the entire time that the Heart Machine were playing, which would have been an interesting thing for him to watch. So Moomin had absolutely no charisma or stage presence whatsoever, and he basically proceeded to wail over these songs. And every single note he hit, I would say, was at least a semitone too flat.
I saw you put something on Twitter about 30 seconds of it, and it was very bad. He sounded bad.
Within the context of a tech metal festival, even the bands that I didn't like at Euroblast, at least they could all play. And in fact, the majority of them, even the ones I didn't like, they were at least incredibly proficient at their respective instruments. So when you see a band, really a guy come on who is just so far away from being able to actually sing the songs, and kind of like the attitude that he had about it. I mean, the room was more or less full. I'd say, I don't know how many, what the capacity is, but I'd wager probably at least 2,000. The room was around about full, and it cleared out pretty quickly. I would say it was about a quarter full by the time their set finished.
Right.
The majority of people who left outside were just wailing outside the doors, and there was a sort of, I mean, there's a lot of videos of this. The rest of the festival, sporadically, people would just start going, which was mocking the, I say lead singer, the guitarist of the Heart Machine.
Well, he's the lead singer now.
Well, he is now.
You know.
And sometimes they would do this when he was around, and he had a very sour face on when that happened. But this just became like a running joke for the rest of the festival. And I'm mentioning all of this really because I've never seen anything like it, really. Not in a professional context. I have at like Battle of the Bands at school and shit like that. Yeah. But that is the last time I recall seeing, because even when we're like really nasty to things, even when we see a band that like we really hate, like, I don't know,
Blink-182.
Well, I've never seen Blink-182. Like Five Finger Death Punch. I once went to see Five Finger Death Punch in Germany, and gave them 2 stars when I worked for the Independent. Right, Five Finger Death Punch can play at least. Ivan Moody can sing. Like they can do.
I gave Pierce the Veil 1 out of 10 when they supported Bring Me the Horizon in 2013.
Right.
I think that's the lowest I've ever given a band, sort of imprint.
Mm-hmm. Could they do the absolute fundamental basics of being in a band, aka play their instruments?
Kind of, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. One of them could.
Okay. Well, what I will say for the Heart Machine, Moomin announced on stage that he had met the rest of his band 3 days before their scheduled appearance at Euroblast. Now, playing maybe the premier tech metal festival in Europe.
It's got to be one of, yeah.
It's right up there. Yeah. It's certainly considered as such. Mm-hmm. And getting a band together 3 days beforehand who had never even met each other to rehearse and practice. I don't really want to shit on the band themselves at all, because I thought they did an incredible job under very difficult circumstances. I don't think they were perfect, but they are clearly, considering that they had 3 days to rehearse, they're clearly amazing players, like properly amazing players. They weren't the tightest, but then they had 3 days to rehearse. So, fair enough.
On that note, I actually remember once, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but I remember bumping into, I think, again, it might have been 2013, Crocodile's first gig was at Download Festival.
Right.
On the third stage. And I saw Dan Picard and he went, I've just met my singer for the first time.
Oh, wow.
On the day.
I mean, sometimes that stuff happens.
But that's like Dan P. Carter, fucking Lags from Gallows.
Yeah.
Old, somebody who might be in Slipknot.
James from Sixth. And,
James like really good people.
Well, also, you usually... I was under the impression that he had literally just got the band together 3 days earlier.
Right.
Okay. So the Crocodile guys would have been sharing stuff over over the internet and stuff, and rehearsing their individual parts, probably to some sort of click track thing to try and get it all. They would have, but this was just like shambolic as fuck, basically, and to a paying audience. And Moomin stated that he was nervous and all that sort of thing, but I mean, it's not really acceptable to do that sort of thing, is it? I said to the Euroblast PR that a fan of the Heart Machine must have felt that watching that set was akin to watching a brain surgeon operate on a loved one poorly. And far be it from me to say if that Euroblast PR did or did not double up with laughter, but I'll leave that to your imagination. It was an absolute shit show.
Should do more character assassinations on the show. To all of you listening, I didn't say shit. I just.
I'm going to make sure Al's listening. There's some
burn
people.
Renfrey's house down, not mine.
Yeah, burn my house down, please. Please, I'd love to talk to you. A lot of people might be like, Jesus, this seems like a really harsh, sharp, nasty thing to do to an individual. Based on the things that I witnessed backstage, I cannot think of an individual who deserves it more than Al Moomin. If you are listening to this, Al, please stop. Just quit music. I can't see a modicum of talent within you, and you should stop. There are a lot of people. There's a Euroblast family Facebook page where, and a lot of those people who aren't, didn't follow him around backstage, and so probably aren't aware that he's an absolutely horrendous human being. And a lot of them are trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and all that kind of thing. No, don't. He is a despicable human being, and he really should stop playing music now.
But it's good then.
The rest was fine.
Euroblast?
Yeah, it's all right. It's quite good. I think its reputation as the best tech festival ever. I've been to 3 tech metal festivals this year, and I would say it's the second best I've been to this year.
What's the other ones?
Complexity Fest would be my number 1.
Oh, yeah.
I also went to Radar, lovely strip bar Radar, and all 3 of those festivals I had a really good time at. And Eurobus is good. I felt like I'd heard a lot of really positive things about it before I went, so maybe my expectations were a tad too high. Or maybe I'm just sick of seeing bands with backing tracks. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I thought it was good. But I can't say much more than that. I didn't think... there wasn't a single set I saw all weekend which was mind-melting, oh my God, 10 out of 10, amazing.
Yeah.
I would say all the highlights that I mentioned, those 5 bands that I mentioned as highlights, were all very, very good, but they were all kind of 8 out of 10.
Right, okay.
Whereas,
speaking of going into something with fairly low expectations, shall I talk about Static X?
Please, I'm really excited about this.
I went to see the reformed Static X on about a week ago. And it was very interesting, Renfrey. The first thing I noticed was the T-shirts that people were wearing. One, it was sold out to, it was sold out. You know when they go, it's sold out? This was fucking sold out.
What was the venue?
Electric Ballroom.
Ooh.
It was seriously sold out.
Have they opened the upstairs bit?
Yeah. And the upstairs was absolutely fucking rammed up there.
Excellent. Cool.
It was packed.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to start. I didn't research dope. Okay. I'm going to start from Wednesday 13.
Are you reviewing the drug there or the band?
Kind of both. I'm ambivalent to both. Wednesday 13 to me seemed like as third down on the bill at the Electric Ballroom. He's bigger than that, and he's surely Wednesday 13.
I don't know. I heard a rumour, although I don't think it's true, but I heard a rumour that a promoter in Bristol paid a disgusting amount of money for Wednesday 13, but I think he was joking, but I'm not sure. But that would suggest that
quite
no.
Big though, do you know what I mean? He does seem bigger than third down on the bill at the Electric Ballroom, which holds 1,000 people, maybe? No, not even that. 800 people.
Yeah. I thought
he could. If he would play, he would be at 500. He could do a 500 cap venue on his own.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I would have definitely thought that he would sell out the Underworld with no issue whatsoever. Yeah. I would have thought.
So weird. So it was just odd that he was that far down the bill. He dressed up a lot like Alice Cooper, and when I think of Wednesday 13, obviously you think of the Murder Dolls a lot. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've listened to every single Wednesday 13 album, or I've listened to every single Murder Dolls album, or I've listened to Frankenstein Drag Queens from Planet 13 that much over the years. But I thought I knew enough about Wednesday 13 to think that he wasn't sort of sub Rob Zombie, which is kind of what that show was. Right. It was very industrial metal stomper.
Yeah.
I always thought Wednesday 13 was much more Alice Cooper and glam rock, Twisted Sister, and that kind of thing. That was what I thought Wednesday 13 was. And I know, obviously, like Frankenstein drag queens are definitely much more Ramonesy, Misfitsy stuff, and Murder Dolls as well. You know, the album, that first album, is definitely much more kind of
Beyond the
glam.
Valley of the Murder Dolls.
Yeah. And the bits and bobs that I've heard from his last album, I don't remember it being proper. I don't know if he changed his, deliberately picked the material that sounded much more like what he was surrounded with. But it wasn't quite like what I imagined Wednesday 13 to be like, which was kind of a shame because everyone else at the show was staccato-y nu metal. And I thought, it would be nice for Wednesday 13 because he won't be like that. And he was.
I have to confess, I've never really checked out Wednesday 13.
He's all right. Like, I saw him do an acoustic set at the Borderline, and it was packed.
Right.
And he's really good. Just him on his own with an acoustic guitar. He's really funny. He's really nice.
Yeah.
I've interviewed him a bunch of times. He's really, really nice.
Yeah.
He's a cool dude. Fucking cool dude. But I was a little bit disappointed with his set.
That's a shame.
It's a bit of a shame. Okay. Soil came on. They played their song. They brought their song to London.
Remind us of the song.
We're bringing our song. I will show you my little halo. They did that. They did like 20 minutes before, which wasn't that. And I was like, hold on. This isn't Halo. And I was like, play Halo. And everyone else, a lot of people going, come on, you got. And they didn't. And then they didn't. But you know what? They didn't even end with it.
Really?
They ended with a cover of Whoa, Black Betty, Rambalam.
Oh, fuck off.
So they ended with
Black Betty, Rambalam.
the mate boy got in the because he went, who remembers an album called Scars? And we were like, no, but we remember the song that you released from it. Fucking play that, you twat. So they played their song, and they actually were not as bad at the start. Because obviously I was like, oh, here they come. And I was like, all right, let's do the fucking countdown. They're on for half an hour. They're on for 40 minutes. Let's put 35 minutes on the timer and come back. Just in time. But it reminds me actually, like, I went to Groves Rock. The one time I was at Groves Rock, Sum 41 were like, Rancid did Out Come the Wolves the first day in full, which is amazing. Second day, Sum 41 headlined. And it was my stag do, actually. Because, because I... got married. That went quite badly. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's fine. And
don't get married, kids. Ever. It's a waste of time.
And
are you
the
crying?
stag do was good. No, the stag do was really good. The stag do was good. It's almost worth pissing 4 years of my life away for the stag do, to be honest. And all that money. Anyway. So my stag do. The second night, by the end of the second night, everybody was just completely blasted. And we were like, Sum 41 have been on for like an hour and 20 minutes. Like, should we just go and watch a little bit of Sum 41? And we ran over, and as we got into the tent, it just went as we got in, and then we went, yeah. And then they played In Too Deep, and they went, see you later. And we went, bye. We watched 7 minutes of Sum 41 in its entirety, and it was In Too Deep and Fat Lip. Perfect. So anyway, but Soil weren't as bad as I thought they were at the start.
Okay.
And then I was like, every song... After sort of 5 songs, I was like, the first one was like, oh, okay, it's not as bad as, it's not Halo, which is bit of a downside, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then they just like, every song was like, I will present you with my medium-sized hat. Like,
so the rhythms weren't quite as good.
They played Halo. And then when they did play it, they sort of wheezed through it, and it wasn't very good.
Oh, so
everyone went mental. He got in the crowd. He did that stupid thing where he got in the crowd.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Never
and
seen that
also
before.
they did they did about 5 minutes of build up of like feedback and stuff before, and it was like, I know what you're gonna play, mate. Know what you're gonna play.
During a support set as well.
He's like, this one, and then it was just like da 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 ba ba.
They went into Rain and Blood.
No, they didn't. Somebody this week does go into Rain and Blood, which is good later on. And then they fucked off. And then I got to Static X, right? Now, Static X, I don't really even think I've thought about Static X for 5 years.
I don't think I thought
Probably
about.
when Wayne died.
I was going to say I don't think I thought about Static X and since when Static passed away. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where you kind of forget they're a band. But then when you remember, then you go, oh, and then I was sort of halfway on my way to the gig. I was like, and Wayne, so obviously it won't be Wayne. Now, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the Static X reformation. So when the band walked on, it's the original lineup. They played the debut album Wisconsin Death Trip in full on its sort of 20th anniversary. Right?
Yeah, I'm just very quickly. I'm quite surprised. It's been quite the controversy, the old Static X reformation, for reasons you're about to get onto.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Now, when the singer walked out, I thought, bit weird, isn't it, reforming Static X without the only one who was in it for the whole time. And then the guy walks out, is wearing a skeleton costume.
Right.
With his hair done up like Wayne Static.
Yeah,
and a beard,
which for those who are unfamiliar is,
he's got long hair. His hair as long as yours, probably.
Yeah, impossible.
And he would, glue it.
Yeah, like it must take an hour to
2 tins of hairspray.
Yeah.
And Pritt stick and all that stuff.
You can't. You couldn't mistake it for any other hairstyle by any other person in the world. I don't think.
No. He had the same beard and he had a mask on, which was a kind of zombified version of Wayne Static's face. And he walked out and I just sort of went, eh? Bloody hell. And you kind of did a double take and you're like, this feels very, very, very distasteful.
Yeah, that is pretty much what the people have been saying.
Because it would be like, imagine if you died.
Hello.
And I just got some bloke to come round. And I didn't tell you who it was, but I went, hey, Renfrey's still here, guys. We've got a bloke and we've put him in a hoodie and he's got long hair and we've got glasses. But he was put him in a skeleton suit because to show, and he's got all his faces like white and the skin's peeling off because he's dead. I'm sure your friends would go, fuck off, mate.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that like Wayne Static's a massive horror aficionado and all that kind of thing. And so that maybe it could be perceived as a tribute as far as that. And then at the same time, I don't know. I didn't know Wayne Static. I never spoke to him. You would have thought that his bandmates know him better than anyone else, and you would have thought that this would be seen as a tribute.
Well,
but it's still difficult to...
It was really weird.
Yeah.
I was just sort of going, oh. But then they started playing. And the thing about Static X is, considering, they are from a school and a time which is, particularly in 2019, the second, third waves of nu metal, very, very, I would say Static X are second wave nu metal, but like the end part of the second wave of nu metal, right? So the debut album came out in 99. Yeah, so it's 20th anniversary of it, right? Now, again, not listening to that album for ages. They came on and they started with, I think it was Bled for Days. So they didn't play the album in order.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So they started with Bled for Days and I was like, oh, fuck, I've not heard this song for ages. And it was like, fuck me, that's weird, but God, oh yeah, it's Wayne. And you sort of look at it and suddenly when the song kicks in, you're like, this song's actually, it's much better than even, the other bands were playing nu metal-y type of music. And you just go, this is dated and it's shit. And those songs are held up really well. The songs of Wisconsin Death Trip, I'm a Stupid, Just One Fix, Love Dump, which, Love Dump was always just bizarre. But like the title track's great. And I was like, this is really groovy. It's really dancey. It's got some really weird sort of hooky, catchy melodies. It's so kind of kitsch. And it always was kind of, like I was saying last week about, trying to be futuristic when that future hasn't actually arrived means that you don't actually sort of age that much. And, Static X weren't trying to be cutting edge or anything. They were trying to be disco. They were trying to be kind of like evil disco. I think they used to say, we are evil disco. And as it went on, at first I was like, I'm going to watch this, I'm going to see what it's like and, we'll see how long I last. And I got quite far down the front as well because I was... I suddenly went, oh yeah, I like this album. And I sort of ventured further and further down. They sounded really good. They were really fucking tight. And most importantly, pretty much, it must have been 4 or 5 times, Wayne, they video screens with Wayne on it the whole time, and a lot of times they were like, make some noise for Wayne Static, and it all felt like a big tribute to Wayne Static. And by the end, I was like, okay, do you know what? This doesn't leave you with a lot of wriggle room for the future. If this guy, this unknown guy, is going to be like from parts, they've called him Zero, and he's from
It's probably Chris Fenn, isn't it?
And he's from parts unknown, and we don't know who he is, but he's dressed up as Wayne Static, and that's the sort of look, and it means, well, okay, well, you're kind of putting a full stop on your career at this point, aren't you?
Yeah,
but apparently he's got a new album coming out.
Oh.
So,
Oh dear.
So that's the thing where you're like, well, you can't really do a new album and pretend to be someone else. Like, this is like a kind of, it's almost like a living hologram.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really weird thing to do.
I mean,
like, imagine if Dave Grohl and Chris Novoselic were like, there's a man with blonde hair and a check shirt, but he can play Smell Like Teen Spirit. Well, you with
Come as you are.
With a big shotgun mark on your fucking forehead or something. Like, people would go, what are you doing? Yeah. And I think it probably says quite a lot about nu metal and the sort of the way, because it was just really, really cartoony. And in between songs, he was like, oh, hello, London, we're rock, let's all do a shot. And I was like, I've forgotten how stupid nu metal bands are, because it's been such a long time since I've seen a proper like nu metal band, like bands who have transcended it, Deftones, Korn, System of a Down, Slipknot, whoever. But the ones like the sort of the I don't really want to call Static X the dregs of that scene, because I'd probably put them in the sort of like touching the upper echelons.
Maybe the more standard bearers. I don't know.
But like,
I know what you mean.
Songs like, Get to the Gone, Black and White, they played that as well. Like, those songs they're great. They were great. And I actually
not listened to them for a long time.
Went away and I was like, man, Static X were good. At least for 2 albums, Static X were really fucking
Wisconsin
good.
And Machine, I'm guessing.
They're great, those albums. Those albums are really good. I mean, Wisconsin Death Trip, that is a fucking killer album. That's a great record. And I listened to it on the way back and I was like, this is good. This still sounds good. It was weird. It was interesting. But I went away from it going, yeah, good.
Fair play.
Would see again. Like, get it download. Love to see it download.
Yeah, I have never.
I'm not going to download, but theoretically,
I've never heard of a band doing that before.
Yeah, it's very, very odd.
So, fair play from that point of view, but also, I don't know, it's odd. I mean, but you would be happy to see them again, would you? Like,
I really, really. I thought the set list was great, because they played kind of 7 or 8 songs from Wisconsin Death Trip in no particular order.
Oh right, so they didn't play the whole record. I thought they were playing the whole record.
They did play the whole record. They played about 7 songs in no particular order, and then they had a little like shot break, and they had a thing of Wayne Static, like, and his date of birth to the date of his death, and everyone gave a big roar, and then they went into Get to the Gone, and then went to Black and White, and then they did that kind of like, here's 2 from Machine, here's 2 from whatever the next one is, and then here's 2 more from, well, I'd stop listening at that point, but here's 2, and they went sort of chronologically through their career, and then they did the last 3 songs on Wisconsin Death Trip, which I think they did I'm Was Stupid and then Push It, I think were the last 2, if memory serves. It was good. Surprisingly good. But then my expectation levels were very, very low for it. So,
I saw posters of the Static X show because they were coming to the venue that I was seeing Euroblast at in Cologne. And I was, thinking of you seeing that show. And next to them, I saw posters for Clawfinger as well.
It's a bit annoying that show was on the same night as Nile and Volbeat supported by Baroness.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit like, I'm happy to see this, but of all the bloody nights.
Yeah.
That was like all the agony of choice, Baroness or Nile. Oh, neither. Throw both of them on the floor.
Okay, so the day before I went to Euroblast, I was down in Bristol because I feel like I've been touring the whole fucking world at the moment. And I went to see Emma Ruth Rundle, who is Fabby Dabby Dosey. She was supported by Joe Quayle. Are you familiar with Joe Quayle?
Again, I know the name.
She's a cellist. She does
of course, yeah.
Super Chelly things.
Super Chelly.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? You're calling it that, are you? You're happy with that?
Yeah, I'm
Okay, cool.
happy. I'm ecstatic.
All right.
And so her form of excellent super Chelly is just magnifique. And it's sort of, I mean, it probably goes along the more kind of near-classical realms of what we have discussed in the past. But there's shitloads of looping, and the cello is like hollowed out and it's all electric and stuff, and it's just her on her own, but she's looping the shit out of it. And all of her songs are around 20 minutes long. She is fucking great, and she's also going to be on a podcast that I have done soon for a special for something, which I'm still not going to announce yet. But she was absolutely excellent. I can't say loads about her because the exchange where I saw them in Bristol was absolutely packed. And I was right at the back and I could barely see her. But I've seen Jo a number of times and she's fantastic. And she got an amazing response. And she was a brilliant support for Emma Ruth Rundle.
Look at Bonjour.
Evil. Literally,
not evil. She's smiling through her eyes.
She's not smiling through her eyes.
She is.
She's
Bonjour.
Cursing me through her eyes.
She's such a cute face.
This was kind of the last we'll see from Emma for the On Dark Horses. Talked about Emma Ruth Rundle quite a lot on this show. She was wonderful, as usual. There isn't loads else to say about bar the fact that she was absolutely brilliant. I think she's at the top of that kind of game in terms of, I suppose, dark sort of what's the wibbly effect? Reverby kind of stuff. And she's my favourite of all those kind of artists. I just thought she was absolutely brilliant. And
talk to me about Linguita Ignita.
Okay, all right, okay. So then,
because I was too scared to go to this.
So a couple of nights ago, I went to see Lingua Ignota. Now, we discussed Lingua Ignota a few weeks ago, her album Caligula. We've both basically collectively said it's the heaviest record of the year. When we say heaviest of the record of the year, we are very much...
any year.
Quite possibly, yeah. We are very much referring to the themes and delivery.
The delivery, the
feel,
the themes.
As opposed to the sonic. Yeah, as opposed to the sonics.
Even though sonically it is pretty heavy.
Although there are certainly moments that sonically it is fucking terrifying, frankly.
No, I don't even know if I said pretty heavy. It's really, really heavy. I haven't actually listened to it since, even though I said I wasn't going to.
You have? Did you say?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
And how are you? How's it settling with you now?
It's the impact of it will not dull.
No, it's very, very, very... It is by far one of the most powerful records of the year, if not the most powerful record of the year. And maybe even one of the most powerful records of the decade. It started with... Kirsten Hayter. It started with her setting up the stage to a whole bunch of bands. I mean, she clearly curated a bit of a playlist, which was things. I'm pretty sure there was some Full of Hell in there. There was a Cult of Luna song. It was all really heavy, really nasty, extreme metal.
Yeah.
Stuff, quite a lot of like noisy avant-garde rock stuff. And she was setting up the stage. She was putting a sheet up at the back of the stage and covering. She had a keyboard or electric piano with her. She covered that up in plastic as well, and just sort of not going through the motions, but just preparing herself for the show in front of everyone. And it kind of felt like this was almost as much a part of the show as the show itself. So that was happening for half an hour. And then when she started playing keyboard or piano and singing as well. And she is a absolutely incredible, phenomenal musician. It's been spoken about a lot how she is classically trained, and you can really hear it live. When we see a lot of music live, and the difference between seeing someone who is sort of classically trained and seeing someone who's just sort of, you know,
in the heart machine.
Which I literally saw the day before. My God. Or someone who we would see as really, really capable and really, really good at singing or screaming or whatever, and then seeing someone classically trained. I mean, quite a lot of the time, I have a little bit of an issue with people who are classically trained because I feel like they kind of stick to the rule book a little bit too much.
Not in this case, evidently.
Not, but you know, that is not the case with Lingua Ignota at all. And her voice is transcendental, and it's utterly mesmerizing when she's playing and singing, I thought. It's really difficult to review this as a traditional gig because I don't really think it is a traditional gig. It's more of a kind of I don't really want to use the word performance because that might give the impression that it's sort of faked, and I don't think it's faked in any. I think it's relived, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it is performance art, but based on something that, you know, happened to the performer. And it was a real. I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter and a lot of reviews and so on and so forth, basically professing it to be the most amazing thing they've seen. I thought bits of it were incredible, and I thought bits of it were not as much. I really thought. I suppose this is going to go along with a lot of what I say with musicians playing live and so on and so forth. But I really enjoyed when she was being a musician, if that makes sense. And the feeling was still there. She was still conveying the songs in an extraordinarily visceral way, which is very difficult to you know, turn your face away from or anything like that. But then when she wasn't playing, she was just singing to a backing track. And because it's just her on the road, it feels like, you know. And this almost feels like something that she has to do on her own. It would be kind of strange to have a backing band there doing this with her, because I think her backing band being on the road with her would be too concerned for her every night, the manner in which she's doing it. But she would then, I mean, this has been talked about a fair amount with her live show, but she had this light which she could carry around with her, and she put it around herself, and she'd go into the audience and start singing the second track on the record, which is certainly the first moment of the album where you go, fucking hell, that is really tough. There was a moment where the backing track failed, which just felt really, I mean, this is, you know, just more evidence as to why you should just, I don't know if you can play that music live. That's the thing. But it was really weird because like people were like totally getting into it, and it was a really raw, very intense performance, and it was really, and then the backing track failed and she had to sort of retreat back on stage, and it all just kind of
fell apart,
fucked it a bit, I thought. And then and I mean, she recovered very well considering, and she definitely still stayed within it, but it really, I was really entranced up to that point, and it really lost it for me quite a bit. And then it kind of kept changing between her playing live along with keyboard piano, which were bits where I was really mesmerized and thought it was absolutely brilliant and beautiful, and then beautifully performed, I guess. Yeah, I should say. And stuff with backing track where it was more like a performance, but things she'd obviously, I'm not trying to insinuate that what she does is exactly the same every night, but she very clearly, it's like, right, for this song, I walk over here and I stand on this stool and I put the microphone around the lighting rig and then I strangle myself with it and sing it like that. And it all was a little performance-y. And I mean, I said this to you on the phone. It was kind of more. It was more theatre. It was more something that you would see like at the Fringe, and Fringe is often associated with comedy. There's shitloads of theatre at the Fringe as well. It's more something that you would see like in a Fringe, Edinburgh Fringe, or a Fringe theatre in London, but something really artsy and experimental and weird. Than it was a gig, really. So to review it as a gig feels wrong. And it was an interesting hybrid of the two, but whether this is just going to my taste or not, and I don't think it is, because I've seen plenty of artsy-fartsy performance stuff in the past and really, really enjoyed it. I did train as an actor, you know. But I have. I've seen, you know, I've been in little box theatre 50-seater box rooms where like people are fucking cutting up rotting meat and going abattoir, and been like, oh, this is fantastic. You know, I have. I've also seen performances like that and gone, this is bullshit. This was a kind of in between the two. I wasn't really sure what to make of it, to be totally honest. I will say it's, in terms of a gig, it's one of the, you know, it's one of the most beguiling, interesting things I've seen. But it didn't, you know, she played for an hour, and it didn't. I wasn't completely transfixed for the whole thing, if I'm honest. But when I was transfixed, and when she was playing, and when she was using her musical abilities, which are beyond just incredible, I thought it was mesmerizing. But when it was more a kind of performance art piece, I mean, there was a point she set up the sheet because there was a light behind the sheet, and she would go behind the sheet, so she was sort of in silhouette and performing the song, and there was this part towards the end where she sort of flumped down to the ground, and then she crawls off, and it all just seemed to be a little bit theatrical. And considering what the record is, it's an odd thing to do, I think. I think it's an odd way to portray it. I mean, it certainly made me think and made me feel uncomfortable, and which I imagine are all things that she wants, and made me question a few things. But I have to say, I have been super, super busy, but it didn't stay with me in the manner that I thought it would. I kind of thought about it a little bit whilst going home, and then went to sleep and haven't really thought about it all that much since.
Okay. I mean, I'm a bit annoyed that I'm too much of a pussy to go.
Well, I will say this: I'm very, very glad I saw it because it is.
Now it's happened. Because at the time I was like, "No, fuck that, I can't." But now it's happened. I am a little bit like, shit, man. Like, I should have tried to tackle it, because I think about that. Like, this is an album that I think about all the time. I told you something earlier about stuff about you know what I've thought about it. Which I can't really go into here particularly because it'll be a spoiler for later in the year. But yeah, but I think about it all the time, and I have sort of attempted. I have one more time attempted to kind of go back to it, and I still feel the same about it. And I almost don't want to listen to it that much, and I don't want to become desensitized to it really, because I don't think you should be desensitized to something like that. So I kind of like that it exists in this place, a bit like, again, Irreversible being the sort of film equivalent of it, where, you know, again, that, like I said at the time, that is so, I don't need to watch it again. It's so fucking burnt into my memory that like, it was never going to go. It's, you know, I'll never forget sitting on that fucking beanbag over there with this record on and just being like, oh my fucking God. And, you know, I don't think I need to listen to it.
Maybe, excuse me, maybe that's it. Because the record stays with me, and I think the record is an enormously powerful piece of work, piece of art, whatever you think of it, whether you're able to listen to it or not. It is an extraordinary piece of work which has stayed with me, and I do go back to it from time to time, and it still has a massive emotional effect on me. And there were points where I got that seeing it live, but there are also points where I was a bit like, oh, I'm kind of bored.
Right. Interesting.
Which sounds really insensitive, but I'm afraid that is how I felt.
Yeah, well, mate, you got to tell.
Got to tell how it is.
You felt. Let's do some album reviews then, Renfrey. Let's start with the Menzingers.
Hooray!
The album's called Hello. That's cool. See how quickly that mood changed?
Just like very good.
Really, really easy.
It's very good.
Hello,
you could be on the One Show. Go from like, I don't know, World War II memorial to socks.
Yeah, to the. I was about to say socks. The odd sock collection.
It's all in the mind.
Let's do another song, shall we? Nah. The Menzingers, Hello Exile, is a 6th studio album from the Philly Heartland punk rockers. I bloody loved After the Party that came out in 2017. What a brilliant record. I think Rented World is obviously the one before that is great as well.
Well. I am a huge Menzingers fan, but I always seem to be against the grain with what everyone else thinks, because I thought After the Party was a very good record. Rented World was my album of the year in 2014, I believe, and for me it is undoubtedly their best record, but not many people will say that. Most people will point to On the Impossible Past.
I was about to say On the Impossible Past.
Or After the Party. Yeah, their best record. But I disagree.
Well, I think they're all very good.
But at the end of the day, yeah, they're all. Menzingers haven't released a bad album, really. Even their debut was brilliant.
I mean, what I would say is that I remember getting Rented World. I was on Team Rock at the time when that came out.
Hello.
And I was like, oh, this band are good. And everyone seemed to be going like, wow, they're back, they're great. And I was like, yeah, this band are good. And I listened to that, and I listened to On the Impossible Past, and I was like, these are good. But it wasn't really until After the Party that I was like, oh, this band are great. They're so great.
I think they've taken that crown, haven't they, from the Gaslight Anthem as the heart. I mean, I think they did probably a couple of records ago, but as that like modern.
Gaslight haven't really even done anything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in terms of like that modern heartland rock with a punk edge, they are the best. Probably.
Definitely the best.
Yeah.
And they seem to be getting bigger, both commercially, sizably, and they seem to be getting bigger in terms of. There are parts on this album, Renfrey, that sound a bit like The Killers, right? Now, I know that sounds like a mad thing to say and a stupid thing to say and an awful, insulting thing to say, but I don't mind it. I don't mean it as an insulting thing to say. What I mean is, when the Killers did Samstown, which is their second record, which was where they wholeheartedly embraced this kind of heartland Americana kind of Springsteen-y, anthemic, big state, and they are a stadium-sized rock band, the Killers, right? Do you know what I mean? It might not be a particularly good one anymore, or not even anymore. But that's what they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Menzingers, when you listen to kind of some of the earlier stuff, and even bits on, even on the last record as well, a lot of it, what's great about it is it's gritty and it's dirty, and it still makes you go, yeah, and it's big, but I feel like there are bits on this that are much more stadium-sized than the Menzingers have ever sounded before.
Quite possibly. I mean, I think,
and I don't mean that as an insulting thing, because I think everything that's ever been there from the Menzingers before that you would love is still very, very pronounced and clearly there on this record. But I do think they now have a bit of a lift in some cases, in some songs.
I mean, this album feels. I brought up Rented World because it feels very Rented World-esque to me, in that it's a little bit less. It's a little bit more contemplative than maybe After the Party and On the Impossible Past.
Yeah.
But for me, that's actually where I like Menzingers at their best. I think Menzingers are I think they're brilliant at everything they do, to be honest with you. But the stuff that I really love Menzingers, I think Menzingers are brilliant at doing their version of ballads or mid-tempo songs. They are enormous. I mean, they are amazing. The beauty of Menzingers, basically, is how they manage to write lyrics and couplets that feel as if they pertain to you and only you, and yet 500,000 people are feeling exactly the same way. And
Strangers Forever. I mean, when there's a song in it called Strangers Forever, and I'm gonna have to paraphrase the lyrics, unfortunately, but it is like, let's pretend we never knew each other. We should have stayed strangers forever. Like, and that, which is like, we're in love, and that's all you need to know about it. It's like, we're in love, and now we hate each other, and I wish I'd never met you. And it's really kind of beautifully bittersweet.
Well,
and the Menzingers write the sweetest kind of bitter pills. Like, they do that heartache so. It's so great.
I think there's the third song on this record. I absolutely adore it. High School Friend.
Yeah, that's
where the chorus is like, I was getting fucked up with a high school friend, wondering where all the good times went.
Yeah,
and like that is just one of those. Whether you do get fucked up with high school friends or not, that is something that idea of looking back and wistfully thinking, weren't times better then, is something that pretty much we can all relate to, especially old farts like us.
Well, yeah, I was going to say as well, because on the last album, there's what we're going to do now that our 20s are over.
Yeah, exactly.
And on this one, they're going, no, fucking, I'm nearly 40. There's one song, I can't remember off the top of my head which song it is. It might be that song where he's like going, you know, on the waking up and feeling like you're nearly 40. And it's like, oh shit, like you are me, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's really weird.
You could really, really relate to it, and the manner in which they weave these narratives and these stories are really unbelievable. There's a brilliant, I'm going to call it a ballad, although I don't think ballads strictly right in the Menzingers world, but this song, I Can't Stop Drinking.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure that was what you were going to bring up.
It's just beautiful in its simplicity and the stark portrayal of what is effectively an abusive relationship, which somehow, it has this amazing empathetic / sympathetic way of making you being able to sympathise with both sides of the story. So in the sort of manner, you know, if you get like a classic literature, classic play like Streetcar Named Desire, the way in which you know, Marlon Brando's character, Stanley Kowalski, I think his name is, you kind of, he is a shit, but you empathise with him, or you sympathise with him, despite him being an utter shit. And this song, so it has this line which is like, when the cards and flowers don't work, I sleep on the couch when I'm a jerk. And it's like, even though this guy's a dick, you kind of sympathise with him, and I think that's that way of kind of it's the Springsteen thing, isn't it? You know, the way of like empathising with I don't know, beatniks, down and outs, people who fuck up, but people who mean well, I suppose. I think there's a real beauty in that, that kind of giving people a second chance kind of thing. And it's not all that at all, but I think there's something oddly beautiful about that in a weird kind of way.
You know, so much of the Menzingers back catalogue that really speaks to me a lot is about kind of broken but
I don't want to be an arsehole anymore.
Yeah, broken but good, like ultimately good-hearted people. Yeah, people who struggle to kind of curb that sort of, I don't know, destructive, self-destructive tendencies.
Absolutely.
And you know, like, you know, maybe we're sitting here and being like, people might be listening going, oh god, two blokes in their bloody 30s talking about Bruce Springsteen and going like, oh, I could have been a contender, like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, all right, we're pathetic, all right, fine, we are. And
yeah, but so are millions of Springsteen fans in that case.
And it's just like, but unfortunately that you know, so many people do relate to that sort of thing, and there's a reason why it has been working since the sort of birth of rock and roll, and it still does, and it does on, you know, you mentioned we spoke about the Gaslight Anthem, they do this,
Fallon does it brilliantly,
the Hold Steady are another band, like, you know, we've had a year of this stuff which has been absolutely excellent, like, and obviously the Menzingers will be no surprise to anyone that have made an album which is as good as any of the Nervous album, the Pup album, the very, very best of these bands. They, go blow for blow with all of them.
I think it may well be the best.
I think I'm going to need a bit more time, and I'm also going to need a bit more time with it to decide whether I prefer it to After the Party or not, in where it sits in their back catalogue.
This is my second favourite Menzingers album after Rented World. I think it's fucking amazing.
It's brilliant. I
think it's wall-to-wall brilliant. I think the weakest moments on the album would be highlights of most other people's albums. You mentioned Strangers Forever, right? Great song. But the first 4 or 5 times I listened to the record, I didn't even really notice it was there. And I think that is nothing to do with Strangers Forever itself. It's more down to the quality of the songs that are around it.
If I ever spoken about that thing where track 1 on an album, if people release an album and they might release this brilliant record, but if the first track is like incredible, sometimes it takes me so long to get through a whole album because I go, my God, that song's amazing. And then the second one comes on, you go, I might just listen to that first song again.
I actually did that on the way here listening to this record, And so the first song on this album, just quickly, is you're about to
America, You're Freaking Me Out, which has been released as a single and you've probably already heard it. But it is so brilliant. And again, just this collage, this painting of the inside of, it's obviously told from the eyes of someone who's looking at their country and going, well, I don't really know what's going on here at the moment. Like, this is
so pertinent.
This is really weird. And is said, with no bells and whistles at all. There's a bit about, the woman preaching for Jesus, like acting like she thinks Jesus would have done on the street corner. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but there's some line on it where I was like, oh my God, that's so perfect. Where he's saying, there's somebody on the street corner preaching for Jesus, going, this is what Jesus would be doing if he was here now. I know it. And he's like, I'm not sure about that, love. Well, it's so. Again, it's so great.
The main refrain of that song is "America, I love you, but you're freaking me out." And I mean. Yeah, as I say, so pertinent, and it feels so perfectly of the time now that, any historical footage of 2019 that's ever produced, I feel like should be soundtracked to that song. And that 3 minutes pretty much sums up the state of America right now, as far as I'm concerned. Did you see this spoof? The music satirist website, The Hard Times?
I do.
I
like it as well.
It's great. It's fantastic. Please give me a job.
I was going to try and think of one off the top of my head then, but I can't remember.
They did a brilliant article recently, and the headline was "Menzingers get great idea for song after seeing friend smoke cigarette," which, if you know the Menzingers music, is fucking hilarious and brilliantly spoofed. But I think what I love about this spoof story is it kind of gets to the heart of what's brilliant about the Menzingers, and that's the fact that they can make the ordinary seem extraordinary and fill everyday life with this romanticism and pathos that makes simple moments or gestures seem grandiose. And that is, and again, that's what Springsteen does so brilliantly as well. I'm getting to the point now where I'm going to controversially say I think the Menzingers do it as well as Springsteen now.
Well, so here's the thing, is not only do they do that really well, as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, we haven't really talked about just how great at songwriting, like they're great lyric writing and, we've talked about, this is a ballad and that's a really catchy song. But they write, and I mentioned, that this feels like it's going slightly more stadium. I wouldn't say it's more polished or anything necessarily.
I think it's a very subtle shift, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but I definitely think
I don't think anyone needs to worry.
No, not at all. I think, luckily, I think for bands like the Menzingers and the Gaslight Anthem, the Gaslight Anthem were a big deal at some point, right?
Hammersmith Apollo, 5,000 cap.
Academy, and they were a big deal. And the reason for that is that this music is, or should be, people like the sound of this stuff if it's done well. It's just American heartland rock. It is Springsteen, Tom Petty. These are but
there's what's not to love.
Yeah, but like most things, it's very, very difficult to get
To
that
do it
simplicity
well.
right. And Menzingers seem to excel at whatever type of mood they wish to take. And they actually make some very interesting sonic choices within the framework of what you think would be a fairly kind of straightforward American heartland rocker. They start songs slowly and then they build into something like raucous.
Yeah.
They will just rely on, I mean, that song you were talking about, I Can't Stop Drinking, subtlety is the word in that song. Like, it's so subtle. I mean, the instrumentation of it is kind of, for a band who are a punk rock band, essentially, right? Like, musically, it's almost barely audible at some points, isn't it? It's really quiet and it's really subtle and it's really kind of dainty almost, I think, that song. But it's just not something that you can't just go, we're going to write a bunch of, like, I'm going to strap on a Telecaster and jam out some, like, great heartland rock. You've got to be a fucking great songwriter. You've got to be a fucking great musician to be able to do that. And the Menzingers are.
Yeah. It's actually moments like that you've just, in the I Can't Stop Drinking song, the subtleties of it, which is actually why I prefer this album, Hello Exile and Rented World, to their other records, even though that's not a popular choice. But those two albums are, for my money, by far their most dynamic albums. And I would say, probably bar Rented World, this is the most dynamic Menzingers record.
Yeah, maybe.
And I am so impressed by the subtleties of what they do with that. I mean, for me, the it's never talked about really, and I don't want to go on about it too much because it's an old album, but the last song on Rented World, When You Died, is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my life, I think.
Great,
and it's so subtle, and it's just Greg and an acoustic guitar, like, strummed without a plectrum, and he's like really lackadaisical and all this kind of thing, and it is the correct, like, way. It's just that you couldn't do it in a more powerful manner. And Menzingers are really good at figuring out how the absolute best way to convey what they want to say.
I agree. No surprises from either of us, I would say.
No.
And you will listen to this, you won't be surprised. Like you say, the shifts are subtle, you know. I guess if you've just got it on and you just want to have a good time, you'll have a really good time. You won't even notice it. You'll get more out of it if you sit down and really listen to it, and if you really pick through the bones and pick it apart. But ultimately,
it's one of those beautiful times though when you're so pleased that you're not surprised.
Yeah.
You know?
The thing, it's not even not being. I mean, I never ever expected to say anything. There are some bands where, I think we'll probably talk about this later on when we talk about Sunday Day Real Estate. There are some bands where you just know everything's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, I didn't have a moment's doubt. There are some bands who, even bands I love and have had like 3-4 album runs that have been great, that I go, oh, something's happened in the build up to this and maybe it won't be that good, and, you know, like, it's been a while or whatever, right? Or the bass player's left or whatever. Menzing is just like, of course they're going to write a great record. Of course they are.
Pretty much.
And they have.
Yeah.
So
the only surprise for me is it is quite firmly my second favourite Menzingers album, but we are talking about, what is this? It's their sixth album. I mean, all 6 of them are great.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't released a bad record.
I think the last 4 in particular, I can understand why people get much more like, about the last 4 particularly.
I have
First 2 fine.
I have a real.
They're not even fine. They're very good.
I have a real soft spot for Chamberlain Waits, which is their second album. I think it's a really underrated record. I'd probably put it above After the Party and on The Impossible Past. But my favourite Menzingers albums and everyone else's favourite Menzingers albums seem to be totally out of sync with each other. So, but what everyone does agree on is they're all great.
Yes, I agree. So there you go. What a shocker. The Menzingers in good album shocker. That's Hello Exile, and it is out right now. Our next album came out last week. It is...
Was it 2 weeks ago?
Or 2 weeks ago, maybe. It comes from the number 12, Looks Like You. The album's called Wild Gods. It is the 5th album from the Mathy hardcore band, and a return after 10 years without a recorded album. So this band... formed, or they formed in 2002? I think
think so.
Formed in 2002. Yeah. They broke up in 2010. They reformed in 2016, and now they have an album out.
I should say, well, they did reform, although it's only 2 members of the original band. So it's vocalist Jesse Corman and guitarist/keyboardist/ backing vocalist Alexis Pereja, I think. But so it's 2 members of the original band, which is often a worrying. I mean, as if comeback albums alone aren't much of a worrying sign.
Exactly.
Just 2 members of the band is often a worrying sign as well. What do you know of the Number 12 Looks Like You?
Do you know what? It's weird because I feel like I should know loads about the Number 12 Looks Like You.
As do I.
But weirdly, they just were one of those bands who completely passed me by.
I feel like they are a band that are a bit of you. I mean, they came up in that they played with Dillinger loads.
They did.
Because I think they're from New Jersey, right? They're from New Jersey, so they're from the same place as Dillinger. They have that kind of, I think, botch sensibility. Mm-hmm. You said, how did you describe them? Mathy hardcore?
Mathy hardcore, yeah.
I don't think that's inaccurate. I'd probably say, if I'm being pedantic, Mathy screamo, but yeah. They certainly have that sense of being incredibly, well, all over the place, I guess.
Yes.
There are, I and I don't know if it's just because I saw them really recently, but it occurred to me that they are kind of like the most demented bits of Between the Buried and Me.
I was going to say there's a lot of Between the Buried and Me that they kind of remind me of,
but with all the proggy bits taken out. Yeah,
early Between the Buried and Me.
Yes,
early Between the Buried and Me, but with the Between the Buried and Me's piano bits from now.
Yes.
That's what I get from this record.
I don't know. Should I go first? Being that I am a Number 12 fan, I think they're fucking excellent, and I think they were insanely underrated at the time, and I'm actually very, very happy to see them back. But because of those, because comeback records aren't always great, and 2 members of the original band, I wasn't really sure. So I think this is a fucking excellent comeback record, and actually amongst the best that they've released. I think I haven't quite. I mean, every Number 12 record is extraordinarily difficult. They're all relatively different from each other, and explore lots of different territories, and it's very sort of difficult to kind of put them into a order. But it's certainly, this is by far not my least favourite Number 12 record, which is more than you can hope for from a lot of comeback records, let's face it.
Yeah, it's true.
It would probably sit quite firmly in the middle, if not maybe second favourite kind of thing. I really, really like it. I still feel like I'm getting a hold on it because there's so much going on this album. I mean, it's 40 minutes long. It has kind of jazzy progressions. It has like a number of... there are hooks. There's lots of gang vocals and stuff like that. There's lots... I mean, there's a sort of circusy feel to it.
I was going to say circusy or cabaret.
Cabaret's good, absolutely. Like the Lunatics have broken out of the asylum kind of thing and have written an album. And I mean, Last Laughter, for example, which is the second track, has this really disturbing pointing and laughing refrain, but then goes into a really massive sing-along chorus section, then goes into this absolutely scorching guitar solo. There's a lot more guitar solos on this record than there normally are on Number 12 albums. And then there's songs there's a song called Tomo's Wound, I think. It starts with like a rumba beat of fear, ends on this bizarre, ominous, dreamy, shoegazy type thing, which sounds like a very, very heavy version of The Cure. There are just so many things going on with this record. And I think when you first listen to it, it's all such a mush and a muddle. It's difficult to pick them out because you're just hit with this barrage of chaos, basically. But the more you listen to it, the more you realise there are hooks there, and there are things going on here and like lots of different elements to it. And it is actually an incredibly dynamic record. It just doesn't sound like it when you first listen to it.
No, I mean, I've listened to this a bunch of times and I can't really get into it. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's... And there's a few reasons for that. On one hand, it's kind of weirdly... Even though everything you say is true, it's kind of weirdly derivative of the kind of bands who were formed when they were around when they probably first formed. And it reminds me a lot of that stuff. And unfortunately, not in a particularly like, oh, great, this really reminds me exactly. Like, See You Space Cowboy really reminds me of, you know, all the stuff that we reeled off when we reviewed that record. And it reminds me of it in a great way, a nostalgic way. And I think the songs are really good. My problem with this is that because there's nothing that is so wildly far more experimental than the bands who I've heard already doing this before, what I really need are really good songs. And at the moment, having had this for like a couple of weeks and listened to it a fair bit, nothing as particularly like stuff does grab you because you go, well, that is, you know, it seems shitty to call them derivative when, you know, I think like you say that kind of cabaret vibe is quite different, and there is a lot going on.
I also think they were one of the people who were helping to form that sound.
Maybe. I mean, if they formed in 2002, then that is some way after, like, a lot of, you know, that's some way after.
It's a few years.
It's a good sort of
3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years after sort of Drowning Man and Minus and Dillinger and Sixth and bands like that who were doing.
But even those, like, bar Sixth, who were later anyway, I don't think any of them had that carnival.
No. It's that. I mean,
thing.
that is a different sort of vibe, and like Between the Buried and Me as well, I think is a good shout. But I just think that it feels more about parts rather than See Space Cowboy. When we reviewed the collection of EPs and the collection of like songs and split parts, I was like, yeah, cool, yeah, this reminds me of that stuff. But I've not really gone back to it because I was like, not very cohesive. There was a kind of a lack of cohesion that I didn't feel like I needed until I heard the album. And once I heard the album, and I was like, oh fuck, it's like that, but it kind of goes, you know, it goes in one. And this, even though, you know, it might have the same vibe of this kind of carnival, you know, weird, kooky, Beetlejuicy sort of thing going on.
Beetlejuice is a great show.
But I feel like it lacks the kind of cohesion and it lacks the sort of the songwriting nous to drag me in enough to make me stay there for the weird bits, if you know what I mean, which See You Space Cowboy and also Gift from God that we spoke about last week, and many of those very, very good bands have. This doesn't have that, and that's a problem for me. That is the kind of the main problem for me in terms of the vibe and in terms of their ability and in terms of the technicality and in terms of their imagination. I think everything's good. In terms of actually wanting being able to get me to sit there and enjoy it, that's the problem that I have with it.
That's interesting because one of my notes is theirs is an incredibly difficult, theirs referring to number 12, incredibly difficult trick to pull off, being incredibly musically diverse whilst also being cohesive. So I suppose
don't feel like it is though,
I suppose on that we disagree. But what I will say is it took me at least half a dozen listens before I felt it was cohesive. Okay. But I suppose going into this, I'm familiar with the number 12's back catalogue. It's always been the case. They've always been a very tricky band to get into. I remember taking someone to see number 12 at the Black Heart when they played a couple of years ago, and they love this kind of crazy chaotic music, but it was basically too much for them, and they were like, I have to go downstairs. It's definitely the sort of thing that like I wouldn't even bother seeing it live unless you know the songs kind of thing.
What's weird when you say that is because I've listened to it at least that many times.
Yeah.
First time I put it on, I went, oh great,
right.
And as it's gone on, the more listens I have from it, I like go, there's nothing apart from oh great, it sounds mad. That's the kind of only thing I'm getting from it. And you know, again, we obviously don't
Yeah.
will share that view.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't. That is the main problem with it, is that I feel like they've got a really cool aesthetic, and I just want to feel like I'm allowed in a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't feel like I am at the moment.
I mean, yeah, the more I listened to it, it grew on me. And I guess the more you listened to it, the more alienated you felt from it.
Not even alienated, just that I was like, because I listened to it and I was like, oh, great. And once I get my head around it, and then the more I felt like I got my head around it, the more I felt like I was sort of like, I'm not really getting a lot out of this, other than the fact that it's kind of a bit wacky.
Oh, I've tried really hard not to use wacky in my review, but do you think it's too wacky?
I don't. I think wacky's kind of giving it like will give people the wrong idea about it. But like it, you know, it tell you who it reminds me of, and they don't actually sound like this, but I always thought I'd love Dog Fashion Disco. Right?
Yeah.
Who are basically sort of System of a Down or Mr. Bungle.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the first time I remember getting their album and putting it on, first Dog Fashion Disco album, putting it on and being like, oh God, yes, perfect. I'm going to love this because I love a bit of Bungle. I love System of a Down. I love like that kind of stuff. And I put it on and it never hooked me. Never, ever, ever, ever hooked me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got that with this as well. I'm like, can you, like, yes, this is interesting, but it's just, and yes, it's, you know, very unique. Yeah. And it's very technically proficient.
Yeah,
and it's very imaginative, but it is never, thus far, I mean, you know, Dog Fashion Disco is fucking 20 years ago now, so they're not going to hook me. But this, it's just not hooked me at all.
Fair enough.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame.
I think that's why I'm a bit more like sort of about it, is because my initial reaction to it, and you know, if you initially go, oh, great about something, then you kind of want it to, you want to get more out of it with every listen. And I don't feel like I've ever got past that initial, oh, wow, they're mad.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting this to be a bit of a shoo-in for you, but obviously not.
Really,
I mean, for me, we've had a lot of amazing, heavy releases in the last few weeks. Yeah. That'll come up again in the next review. And, you know, Car Bomb, See You Space Cowboy, absolutely brilliant. I think they're very, very different, but for me, I put this on a par with Gift from God, personally. I mean, I don't think you would, from what you're saying, but I think this is as good as, you know, for me it goes Car Bomb, See You Space Cowboy, and then this and Gift from God are equal to me. I might even slightly prefer this. I'm not sure, but
Gift from God.
Yeah, slightly.
Really?
Yeah,
hell,
but then
okay.
I guess I'm a number 12 fan. I guess.
Yeah, that might be part of it. But anyway, look, you know, fair play to them for they are an original band.
Yeah.
And this
definitely.
is, and if you get it, you know, I might just be annoyed because I don't get it.
Yeah,
and it's the sort of thing that I feel like I should get. So maybe I'm being particularly sort of harsh on it. And
I'm surprised.
You know, I don't feel like. It's definitely not the sort of thing I'd write off. Sometimes you get albums and go, "Oh fuck this," whereas this feels like one of those albums where I would go back to in a year and go, because I'm a bit annoyed that I don't like it.
Yeah. I wonder if one day I should give you Mongrel, which is their third album. Probably say it's their best, but yeah, maybe one day for trade off.
But anyway, check it out. It's Wild Gods by the number 12 Looks Like You. Another
great
record,
name as well.
Yeah, it is.
What is that all about?
Yeah, it's weird. Next album comes from Renounced. Again, this came out last week. It's called Beauty is a Destructive Angel. It is the third, I believe, full-length album from the London metalcore band. They are the sort of band whose name you hear being bandied around a lot in sort of hardcore underground London-y circles. If you go to enough gigs and you speak to enough people, somebody will bring up, oh mate, Renounced, mate, Renounced. And a lot of you lot out there have been very, very vocal about us reviewing it. So here we are. Renfrey. I want to shout out, before we start, I want to shout out Miss Justine Jones, because Justine sent me this about, sent us this, both of us this. Sent us this,
long time ago.
About 4 months ago.
Yep,
and Justine went, you want to listen to this Renounced album, you're going to really like it. And I was like, when's it out? Oh God, bloody a long way away. So I didn't straight away. And then about 2 weeks later, she went, you want to listen to this, and I want to know what you think about this. I want to know now. And she basically kind of pushed and bullied me into sort of listening to it. And I'm fucking glad she did, because it means I've had this all summer. So I've been able to fucking throw down in my house like a mad cunt, Renfrew, all summer.
Sure. Yeah.
Go.
She also said that there's a song, I'm assuming she was referring to Saltation, but there's this song in her original email to us. She said that this album has one of the best dive bombs leading into a breakdown ever. It's very good. It's not quite dime, but it's very good.
No, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I was a bit like, steady on there. It's very good, but
it's good.
It's not dime, is it? Metalcore.
This is going to be an interesting one, Renfrew, because this is metalcore. But can I just say, this is... So in the last few weeks, I feel like we have referenced a lot of bands from the period that we were just talking about. The kind of
Poison the Well.
The sort of the kind of the pre-build up to the commercial boom of metalcore. You know, the kind of pre-Killswitch Engage bands. You know, we just spoke about Number 12, who we referenced.
Yeah.
Dillinger and Botch, and we spoke about Gift from God, and we were talking about Converge, and we were talking about Shai Hulud, and we spoke about Steve Space Cowboy, and it was Minus, and it was again all the kind of weird sort of mathy kind of shit going to Poison the Well and that sort of thing. And
this feels like a very specific couple of years of metalcore that it's referencing.
That to me was just this absolutely beautiful, like one of my favourite periods and scenes, because I'm not even call it a scene because there's so much from all over the place. But one of the most fertile, brilliant periods for punk rock and heavy music in history. Like I love with a bleeding passion, a raw passion. I love so many of those bands, and maybe that's what. And I think and maybe this is where you and I are different. At that point, when Darkest Hour came out, when Unearthed came out, and when bands like The Hope Conspiracy and Walls of Jericho, I was like fucking fully in on that as well. Canaan, like a British band from like loads of bands from Kent and stuff. There was just such a great scene, but there were a whole bunch of bands who played that. I remember hearing Darkest Hour and someone going, "It's hardcore punk," but the dudes are playing like Swedish melodic death metal. And at the time I just went, what? That's and obviously metalcore has changed a lot over the years.
So when we refer to this as metalcore, it's absolutely not what we would
not Asking Alexandria.
It's absolutely not. No, it's not Architects, it's not
While She Sleeps,
blah blah blah.
Although it's not While She Sleeps.
Not really.
But no, it's not actually. It's not.
I would say you have just named 4 bands, 5 actually, although I don't know Canaan, I don't know them. You've named 4 bands which made me go, which were like, no, I'm a bit off metalcore now. Like I don't like any of those bands. And I think that's kind of the issue, because metalcore for me...
You should have said this before, Renfrew. Why have you never said that you don't like metalcore before?
It just kind of... It probably was like 2000, 2001 when I went, I'm not really interested anymore, bar a couple of exceptions like
2000. Who are you?
Poison the Well. Who am I?
Yeah.
I'm Renfrew. I'm your co-host. But
2000, you're at a metalcore by 2000.
That's the point
before.
where I'm less in. I'd say so. Yeah. So when did Darkest
Jane
Hours
Doe
debut
came out in 2001.
Converge are their own thing, aren't they?
Yeah, but all right. I mean,
Converge are one of those exceptions.
Tear from the Red came out in 2000.
Poison the Well are one of those exceptions.
There's a lot of them. Okay, well,
There's 2 so far.
Every Time I Die, Hot Damn came out.
Yeah, but Hot Damn's not a very good album. As was
Gutter Phenomenon came out in 2000.
I mean, Gutter Phenomenon, fine, yeah, very good. But then I mean, there will be half a dozen exceptions, of which you've named 3. But for the most part, it's when I mean, we've been going on for an hour.
I know.
We've been going on for a while already. But that's generally, let's say this, the 4 bands you've just mentioned, never been interested. Like, Darkest Hour has the odd moment where I'm like, oh, that's quite good. That album they released, the white cover with the red on it, that's quite good.
Long old name,
that's what it's called.
No.
You know, and there are bits, but that wasn't the point where I went, ugh, metalcore. It was the point where I started going, don't know if I'm into this as much anymore.
Yeah.
Ascendancy, for example, that's 2005, admittedly, but by the time Ascendancy came out, I was just like bored.
Metalcore.
Well,
but to me, I wouldn't even say Trivium. I'm not a metalcore band.
Well, you know, it's
They're a metal band.
whether they are or not.
Yeah, I know.
It's a dull conversation, but to be frank, but I think this is good for what it is.
Oh yeah.
I think in fact, I think it's very good, and I think it has very good moments.
Yep.
Funnily enough, I feel like our number 12 and Renounce reviews just should be swapped, because a lot of what you were saying about number 12 is how I feel about this.
Yeah, I wondered if it might be.
So there's a lot of one of the things you said about number 12 was I feel like there's lots of really good moments on it, but no like good songs as a whole. Or I'm roughly paraphrasing, but
no, that's fair.
That is how I feel about this record. There are moments where I go, stink face. And quite a few moments actually where I go stink face, but rarely a whole song. There are a couple of exceptions. What is that the very last song?
The very last song on the record is called, hold on, give me 2 seconds. It's called In a State of Frozen Glass.
There we go.
Statue of Frozen Glass, not state.
That's a really cool song.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
I really like I don't know who plays leads on this. I will say, a quick interjection, Sammy Irwin from Employed to Serve is in this band.
On bass.
He's on bass, is he? Okay, so it's
he's
not
on
Sammy
bass,
then.
yeah.
I mean, you know, it's lovely to hear Sammy say stuff like, they didn't have the strength to make it out alive, as he does in his way on Calculated Risk. Calculated Risk has some fucking excellent bits on it. There's a bit where it goes all black gazy and fades into this acoustic guitar bit towards the end. I'm like, yes, very nice.
I mean, that's pure. You know what I was going to say about this record is that it's amazing to me that Renounced have made a better Killswitch Engage record than Killswitch Engage have just released.
I mean,
not amazing to me, but it's a fact, isn't it?
I would say this shit's over every Killswitch Engage record, but there you go.
I wouldn't go that far, but
I would.
I know you would.
I mean, I think my thing with it is the foundation of it is that style of metalcore, and when it's doing the foundational stuff, I'm kind of like, this is nice. But then when it does something just a tiny bit off kilter and a tiny bit experimental, or there's a lead line which is just like, which is really nice, or there's a backing vocal bit where they're like, that's when I'm interested. But when it's just the foundational sort of riffy, screamy beat down Blair, I'm a bit like, meh.
Just the riffs are so good.
The riffs, there's some very good riffs on this, but
sick beatdowns.
Beatdowns. Don't talk to me.
I
about
bloody
beat
love
downs.
a beatdown. Who don't like a beatdown? Come on. What are you, Tell your eyes.
4-year-olds like beat downs.
Exactly.
They are. It's one note played over and over again in a staccato fashion. Boring.
You're boring.
Very good riposte. I mean, what am I to do with that?
Didn't need to do one. Facts. Don't need.
We need to get Joe Narn on about this. Joe Narn, 12-year-old from Nuclear Blast. He completely hates me talking about beatdowns because I'm always taking the piss out of them.
When it comes in, there are just some points where you have been stirring that metal pot, that riff salad, that riff soup. It's coming. You're getting all like, there's some gang vocal, you're getting a lovely aroma of there's an aroma of gang vocals, there's a bit of At the Gates mixed with some Hatebreed, there's a little Slayer, and suddenly double bass, and then it all just goes cash and it's out, and then you suddenly go, what has everything gone? Gun, 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 and you're just like, it just feels nice in my balls, Andrew. It just gives me a little
That's fine.
I love it.
And there's a lot of people who do love it.
Yeah, they
to
do.
be fair,
And- but the thing is,
I'm just
I
not
agree,
one of
right?
them.
But you've got to be creative with it, and I think Renounced are creative with it. You've mentioned enough little things like weird kind of angular guitar parts, and I think they take from, it's not like too many of these bands just go, oh, we've heard Ascendancy, which isn't even a metalcore album, and we'll do that, and we'll do like a kind of, and it is either, the metalcore became kind of two things. One, just all beatdowns and everyone just trying to be as heavy as possible without writing any songs, or really processed, sugary, shitty, fucking melodic vocal, like rubbish, right? Now, what I think Renounced have done very well is they've taken like a little bit of the Hatebreed thing, they've taken a little bit of the melodic death metal, they've taken some of the really kind of aggro as fuck nasty like Pantera influence stuff that a band like Throwdown would take. So there's Throwdown, there's Poison the Well, there's bits of melodic stuff that's something like you'd hear on like the Satellite Diaries by Hopesfall, and then you've got like the pace of someone like Unearth and the kind of anthemic parts that Killswitch do very, very well, hence why they're the biggest band. And I think the fact that they have like cherry picked little tiny bits of all of these bands from a very particular era that I happen to absolutely love makes them wicked.
I mean, fair, but I think where this album, I think this is a good. I'd like to make it clear that I think this is a good. In fact, I'm going to say this is a very good album in a genre that I'm not particularly into.
That's fine,
right? And I would much rather listen to this than a lot of metalcore bollocks, like definitely. And annoyingly, Renounced played New Cross Inn, which is around the corner, pretty much in between both where we live. Give it away where we live there. But
just go to New Cross Inn and walk either way, and you'll eventually come to one of us.
Come to either me or Steve. But basically, New Cross Inn is very, very close to us both. And annoyingly, I was in Bristol when they did the album release show last week, and seeing this live. With a couple of pints, I'd have a lovely time. I'd have a really lovely time.
Sort of thing makes me want to come out of mosh pit retirement.
I'm not sure if I'll ever listen to this again.
Oh, I will.
No, I'm sure you will. But I think all of those. I think I don't want to do too many comparisons, but just very briefly, the reason I respond to the number 12 album and not so much to this is because all of the influences that you're talking about that they're taking from are remarkably within a very defined box. Whereas, you see your neck okay?
Yeah.
So, well, within the grand scheme of music.
Okay, yeah, within the grand scheme
Whereas
of music.
the number 12 are taking from.
Not going to be influenced by Tom Waits, are they, for Christ's sake?
No, but the number 12 are. Number 12 could be like there are elements of jazz, there are elements of ambient music. They're taking there is so much going on that record.
I would argue that means nothing if you can't do it very well.
I mean, but that's where we disagree in that.
And that
I
is
think
where we
number
disagree.
12 can do it very well, and you don't.
No.
I suppose at least we're both agreeing that Renounced do this very, very well.
Yes,
it's just not my cuppa.
Yeah, fine. I mean, in terms of where it sits, again, I mean, the reason we didn't do it last week is because we basically went, okay, what is the fucking, like, that Car Bomb album is mental. That is insane. Like, that has to be in for sure.
Yep.
I love The Gift from God. I was really, really keen. And it basically...
I think it's wonderful.
I think Sea Space Cowboy shocked the shit out of me. I think it's fucking great.
Yep.
So it basically came down, again, I guess probably it was Gift from God and you going number 12 and me going Renounced.
More or
and
less.
Us, all sort of three of them, us going, oh, well, like we both really liked Gift from God.
Yep.
And you probably like Gift from God and Sea Space and number 12 as much each other. And I sort of like Gift from God and this probably about as much as each other. I actually think I probably would slightly have Gift from God just because it's more savage.
Over this. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, Gift from God. Is Gift from God the most savage of all of those 5 records that we just talked about?
Probably they're
more Car Bomb, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because Car Bomb is just such a...
But
anyway,
most
what
savage...
a good couple of weeks for heavy music.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, to be honest, it's a bit too much. Because I think this
Never too much.
Well, I would say this is another thing. I did wonder, I gave this a good, few listens, like a good half a dozen listens, and I was going... am I being too harsh? Because if this record came out during a dearth of heavy...
As in the other 9 months of this year, pretty much.
If this album came out in February this year, would I be like, oh my God, this is fucking sick?
I feel like metal has sort of arrived at the party this year. We were talking about our best albums of the year. And I would like, for a spoiler, like people often go, I don't need to listen to your podcast about your best albums of the year because I've seen your list in Hammer. Well, this year, hardly anything from that top 20 in Hammer is going to get in my list for Riot Act. Hardly anything. I would say at most, maybe 6 at the absolute most from metal. And I think even that is being pretty fucking generous. I don't think you're going to get much metal in either of our end of year lists, to be honest, because I actually think it's just not been a great year for metal. I mean, when you think some of the best albums that come out have been Slipknot and Tool and Korn, who are bands that have been around, you don't really want the best thing of this genre to be the stuff that is like from bands from 25 years ago, and yet it sort of has been until last week.
Cult of Luna.
I mean that's 2 weeks ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cult of Luna,
yeah, you're probably right.
But I would say, with the exception of, for me, Venom Prison and Rotting Christ,
it's
not really
neither of which I'd even consider, to be honest.
Yeah, there's not really been anything else that is metal
Nope.
that would sort of even be in the conversation for me.
I don't think so. I mean, inevitably we're forgetting something, and some people are screaming at their devices, whatever.
But there's stuff like, obviously, Tool, are a metal band, broadly, kind of,
yeah.
And there are other things like Employed to Serve.
Fucking Employed to Serve will be in there.
I still kind of think of Employed to Serve as a hardcore band, but anyway, but then actually all of these bands were talking about hardcore bands, so Employed to Serve would be another one for sure.
Fair play to Sammy Irwin though for being on two fucking excellent.
I'll tell you what,
for being on two of the best.
Out on bloody Holy Raw. You've had Holy Raw released this and that Throws album and the re-release of Holy Fawn. So when it comes to the end of the year, they're almost
they've sort of released Car Bomb as well.
And sort of released Car. So when it comes to doing like best label of the year, they're obviously going to win that as well from us.
Yeah,
and I actually think, like, in the World Cup, Brazil won the World Cup 3 times, and they just said, right, no World Cup, you can keep that. If next in 2020, this is a shout at all you other record labels, if you don't up your fucking game, and we give Holy Raw best label 3 years running, we'll never do it again.
Yeah, sure.
So you better do it. just trying to get all the
Yeah.
other labels to up their game.
I don't think they will.
Anyway, Beauty is a Destructive Angel. That is renounced and it is out right now. It's really fucking good.
Such a lovely title for such a heavy album.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do our last record of the week.
I think you're a destructive angel, Steve.
Well, it's probably about me, that record, I would imagine. No Moon by Bodyhound, the debut full-length album from the post-rock, math rock supergroup, in inverted commas, as it does feature former members of Rolo Tomasi. Doesn't really make them supergroup at all.
No.
Does it really?
A couple of things there. Math. This is firmly math.
Yeah.
And yes, there are two former members of Rolo Tomasi in this band, the two Joes, but a supergroup needs to have other people from big bands, which this doesn't. So.
Cool.
But yes, bar that, very good, Steve. Well
Thanks,
done.
mate. Cheers. So this is another album that we've been told by a few people that we should be covering. And it feels like it's got quite a lot of hype behind it.
There is a bit of a backstory as to why I've put this album off a little bit. Let's get into it proper. Bodyhound are a band who in the math rock scene have been very, very hyped, I feel. I remember going to one of the Arc Tangents, I want to say 2014, maybe 2015, and it was every single year at Arc Tangent, there's a set that I miss, which it feels like the entire field is going on about. I'm like, oh my God, I must see that. And that particular year, it was Bodyhound. I remember checking out their EP, Rhombus Now, which came out 5 years ago now. And this is their first release.
Yeah.
Since Rhombus Now, which has built up the anticipation even more for this Bodyhound record. And I remember getting the EP and not really getting it. I wasn't really sure why people were going mad over this band. And then I saw them live. I was like, oh, wow. Live, Bodyhound are just great. Here's a word which you might not expect. Fun.
Yeah.
Great fun. They are really...
That, actually.
No. They are really, really, really good fun. And just... I mean, mathy as hell. They're all over the place. It's really mind-boggling music, this. I would say in a different way, but as difficult to kind of digest as a Number 12 or like a kind of, or like a really heavy hardcore band, like the bands that we've just been talking about, really. And so I kind of waited with bated breath for this album, and I'm good pals with the guys, and there
Come on, Renfrew, just say it.
There are many. Okay, so the good things about this record, for starters, it sounds better than Rhombus Now. Rhombus Now didn't really give an indication of what Bodyhound are like at all. I thought the EP and their live show were just, it sounded like a different band entirely. Not sure who produced Rhombus Now, but no. This was produced...
The guy from the Heart Machine, wasn't it?
Probably. This was produced by Tom Peters, who is a member of Alpha Male Tea Party. He's produced Alpha Male Tea Party records, Cleft, Vasa, basically some of the best current math/post-rock stuff in the world right now. And consequently, it sounds fucking great. Doesn't it? It sounds really good.
Oh, yeah. It is sort of sonically very pretty.
Absolutely. Sonically, it sounds excellent. And it's been 5.5 years since Rhombus Now. Can you tell I'm delaying this? Oh my god.
Do you want me to give my opinion first, Renfrew? Because you've said it's been 5 years since Rhombus Now.
Yeah, go on.
Quite a lot. I'll be very quick with this, I think, because this isn't grabbing me at all. We've done a lot of instrumental, kind of mathy, posty, clever records over the last few weeks, and some of them I've really, really liked, and some of them I have not initially liked. This is the first time in a while where I've just gone, nah, not for me at all. I was really, really bored. There are bits in it where I think that's quite cool.
Yep.
That's quite frantic. When they get frantic, I actually quite like it. There's a 2-minute long song called Red Stasis on it.
Yes.
Which is really good.
Yes.
Really good. And I was like...
In fact, I would go as far as to say that there are a few, let's call them interludes, on this album. Red Stasis and what is the other one that I really like? Pillar of Light. These like interlude tracks, which are really good. And I'm just like, I wish you'd expanded on that a little bit.
Yeah, because then there's like, it's followed up by some 9-minute long, like just... It was a real slog, and it was really difficult for me. And maybe it's because I've been listening exclusively to Three Track Tigers and Tea for the Sea and Tides from Nebula, and even that 65 Days of Static album, which I still don't think is anything particularly special, really. But it at least felt more engaging than this, which just... kind of I was annoyed by the end of it, to be honest.
I've had this, because I know the guys, I've had this record for about 3 months, and I've kept sort of going back to it sporadically. I knew it would I've seen them live a bunch of times over the last few years. I knew it would be a difficult record, and I knew it would need a lot of time. So I've been going back to it sporadically over the last 3 months. I don't know exactly how many times I've listened to it, but I would say close to double figures, if not double figures. And I just can't get a hold on it at all. No, and I feel like I've really tried. I really, really do. I was just saying how this music, I feel, is in its own way as difficult to kind of grab onto as those really, really heavy bands that we were just talking about. This album's an hour long. It's 1 hour long, and it feels a lot longer. Yeah, it feels a lot longer.
It does feel like a real undertaking. I don't really want to slag it off, because ultimately what I'm saying is I've just found 5 or 6 instrumental, technically challenging bands who I really, really like. But it's not, probably wouldn't usually be the sort of thing that would interest me that much in the first place.
I think all the bands you've just named are definitely of a higher caliber than this.
Well, that is how I
to
feel.
be honest.
Yeah. And it's actually made me go, actually, maybe I do quite like this stuff more than, it's not what I usually listen to. Like when I often mention talking about listening to Fortet or Boards of Canada or FX Twin or whatever. I don't go out of my way to listen to 30 bands like Renounced. I'll listen to every. I'm happy to listen to every band that sound like Renounced, right? Because that is ultimately what I really, really, really like to listen to in my spare time. Whereas this is something where I definitely have to be in the mood for, and it has to be really, really good. And I'm not saying this isn't. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying
it's technically,
this is where I have to tap out and go, sorry, guys.
It's technically incredible. And they're incredible players, incredible musicians. I
don't doubt it. I mean, it like you say, it sounds lovely.
Yeah.
And it's obviously incredibly challenging a thing to put together and create.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to it.
I think this is one of those cases, classic cases of less is more. I don't know, as I say, there was a lot of anticipation for this record, and it has, certainly on math blogs and so on and so forth, which is the sort of thing this record tends to get reviewed on the most. And a lot of math blogs that I have a lot of respect for, it's had incredible reviews. It's been
Carol
weird.
Vorderman like it.
You see what you did there? I was thinking about Countdown to Extinction, and I was like, no, that's Megadeth, and got very, very distracted. And yeah, it's been reviewed really, really well. There's this sort of sense sometimes that I get with these kind of math rock blogs. You know how some people only like things if it's uber ridiculously heavy? You could argue, but I don't actually mean you, despite thumbing.
I do.
No.
But I do. Just so you know.
But there is that school of thought where, for example, the difference here being like you get people who are like Calculating Infinity is the only good Dillinger Escape Plan album because it's the only one that is stupendously heavy. I know I think it's your favourite, but at the same time, you acknowledge that the other albums are also fucking amazing. I feel like there's an equivalent with like math rock fans where it's like the more notes that are in it, the better it is, and it's like no. And I feel like that might be happening here in a way. The more
there's a lot of notes.
There's a lot. Oh my god! If you like lots and lots of notes, there's loads of them. But too many notes. Too many notes. That's from Amadeus. It's just. I mean, it's around
50 million notes per song.
It's around the. Every time I listen to this record, it is the same. It's exactly the same point where I start getting fed up of it, and it's around. It's at some point during track 8, which is called "Calm Surges," and it's basically around the 40-minute mark.
It's called what? Carl Sturgis.
It's called "Calm Surges."
Oh, right. Okay. I was like, who's Carl Sturgis?
And
but he's just been added. He's the new drummer for Heart Machine. He's just been added.
Oh, I mean, I'd like to do vocals for Heart Machine because I will be better.
He's actually just been kicked out.
News just in. And I don't think the reason for that, I don't think it's because Calm Surges is a bad point in the record. I don't think it's because the album dips in quality. I actually think the album, having listened to it a lot, I think the album is of the same quality throughout. I just think it's the point where my brain goes, enough already. Yeah. And then there's another 20 minutes. And it's just, I don't know if it's because it's been 5.5 years. Maybe there was this feeling with the band of like, right, this is our chance. Let's just do everything we possibly can and make this big, lavish double album, because this is a double album on vinyl, obviously, and make this big proggy math epic masterpiece. the problem with that is there's too many ideas that repeat themselves over and over again on this record. And
exactly.
A lot of kind of dissonance and a lot of like.
It's like someone just going at you for like an hour.
It was more like.
That's quite a horrible thing to say to them. And the thing is, like I said, is they're very talented, but this might come down to my tolerance for this. But then if you're saying that it's not,
but that's
great,
the thing. That's the thing. You were just saying how like you don't seek music out like this, but there are some that you really like. This is music that I listen to relax and to relax. But this is music that
it's so cool.
But what I mean is when I'm done,
the Morbid Angel to relax. Whatever.
What I mean is when I'm done with like the albums that when I'm done with quote unquote work, the albums that we have to listen to review, I will go to a post rock or math rock or lots of instrumental stuff because that just feels like a lot of my go-to a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time. So I suppose I'm more, well versed in this sort of stuff. I think that's fair to say. And I want, especially with the guys being. And they will listen to this, and that just breaks my heart. But I got to be honest, and I wanted to like this so much, and I tried so hard, and it's not there for me. It just isn't, and I'm really sorry, but it just isn't. And there's a lot of people who like it, and I'd love to hear from people who like it, and I'd love to hear why. Because I want to like this so much.
But again, be angry if you are listening, guys. I like Biohazard. Do you know what I mean? This is out of my remit. It's not my fault. I can't. You're cleverer than me. I admit it.
One thing.
He's the shit.
I will say one thing though. I don't think what I think about this album will have any effect on how I feel about Bodyhound live, because as a live band, they're fucking excellent. And they are actually playing a co-headliner with Polymath later in the year, and I am going to see it, and I will review it on the show, and hopefully I will fucking love it. Because live they are tremendous live. But yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, see you there. That was No Moon by Bodyhound. Let's close up with a trade-off. So Renfrey, last week I gave you. Let me get the name of it right. Day of the Death by Death by Stereo. The reason I
almost listened to the wrong record because all of their fucking records most of their records have death in the title.
Right, okay. So this is what I want to say, and we will. Now, I'll tell you what, you say you send some out to Heart Machine. I definitely want to send this out to the members of Death by Stereo because I wrote a blog for Metal Hammer a few years ago, right? The 10 most underrated US hardcore albums. I did one for Europe, one for the UK, and one for the US, right? And I think I picked some pretty fucking cool albums. I picked Hope Conspiracy, and I picked I picked Yours Truly, which is by Sick of It All, which people wouldn't often usually do. Strife, and like a different Earth Crisis album. And I think I picked some pretty fucking cool albums. Avail, One Wrench, I fucking love. And so I picked Day of the Death by Death by Stereo in that list, right? I thought that's a cool record that people won't have heard of before. But because I was doing it at work during my lunch break, and I was basically on a, can I have it in the next hour? Because it's going straight up. It was the Team Rock days where it was like content all day. So you were under sort of pressure to write it really quickly. So I just, from memory...
Brilliant way to run a website.
Yeah, so from memory, I just bashed through this thing. And I accidentally wrote Day of the Death by Death by Stereo as Death of a Dead Day, which is Six's second album from 2005, not this album from 2001.
I hope you got crucified for it.
And Death by Stereo shared it, but went, thanks to Metal Hammer for saying nice stuff about our album. I wish you'd got the name right. And rather than the people on their Facebook page going, oh, well, it's cool that they mentioned you because Metal Hammer mentioning Avail and Sick of It All and Death by Stereo
I can
and
guess
Strife.
where this is going.
They went, fucking Metal Hammer, don't know anything about hardcore. So for the record, thanks to Death by Stereo for appreciating my work. But to all of the people who like Death by Stereo, I definitely know more about hardcore than you, just so you know. Right?
It is weird. I mean, yeah.
No fucking, just because I write for Metal Hammer, I don't know anything about hardcore. It's Fuck you. Anyway, that's by the by, Renfrey. I just wanted to get that right. The name
is
of the album.
Is this the only reason you've given this to me on Trade Off?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So this is from 2001. It is the band's second album. It's their first album on Epitaph. I heard the song, and I want to shout out Simon Young from Kerrang magazine. Someone else who works for a magazine and actually knows stuff about hardcore as well. Yeah. More than you troll pricks. And he put together this really, really brilliant magazine in about sort of 2001, 2002. Well, it must have been 2001. And it was a kind of a punk special, where he did the 50 greatest punk albums of all time, and he covered bands like, I think Grade is the first time the word Screamo was ever used. That is officially a Simon Young term, Screamo, for Grade.
Yes, I remember this.
And there was a CD, on the cover mount CD, had Hope Conspiracy, had Dropkick Murphys, who obviously I already had heard at that point. I think it had Drowning Man on it as well. It had
Bowling for Soup, Blink-182.
Bowling for Soup. Yeah, it had MXPX. It had loads of I think it had the New Bomb Turks in it as well. It had loads of really, really fucking cool bands on it, and that is it's a great CD. And Simon did it's a really, really wicked, interesting comp and magazine. I can't remember what it's called, but it's great. But it had Desperation Train from this album on it, and I listened to that and I was like, whoa, this is mad. Whatever this is, this band are fucking mad. Like, and it stood out a mile, that song. So I went and got the album, and I also saw them playing with Boy Sets Fire at the time as well, and they just were just so bizarre a band that I don't truly feel like I know how to properly describe what Death by Stereo are.
It's a shame because it's your job. So
it is a shame, but that's the good bands and interesting, unique bands are the sort of bands where you go, fucking hell, what? Yeah. So Renfrey, I'm going to put it to you. A, what do you think of this record? And B, what is this?
Well, it's to me, it just, I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but to me, it just sounds like a 90s posy PMA. It's 2000s, wasn't it? But a 90s era.
Production-wise.
Certainly production-wise.
Got the clatter and the rattle of, the Strike Anywheres and the Ensigns and all those kind of that cool production that those bands had, which I am a massive sucker for. Yeah.
PMA hardcore record. And a decent one. I don't have much more to say about it than that.
Really?
I thought it was all right. I think the production unfortunately has dated it quite badly. It has. It really reminded me of like early Planes Mistaken for Stars stuff. Not so. I'm talking purely production here.
Yeah. Okay,
in that this production is kind of squeezing these. You can hear there are great songs underneath it, but I think this is one of those records that young people younger than us would really struggle with. You could say to someone, a Joe Nahn, for example, second mention on the podcast, you could say this band is super Turnstile would have been super influenced by this band, which is a likelihood, a possibility, and I imagine he might listen to it and be like, I can totally see that, but the production just totally squeezes any love that I could have for it out of it, which I don't think is the case with me and you as much, because we're kind of aware of that production style and used to it. But it almost feels like something that you kind of had to be there at the time to truly love it, was what I got from it, and I'm sorry to say that. I thought it was good. I thought they was good.
Way more eclectic than that. They do you know they remind me of
that to me.
Faith No More. They remind me of. They remind me of Faith No More.
Sorry,
and I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
Faith No More at their most raucously sort of punky. The kind of the
Surprise You're Dead.
The fifth. Well, the sort of the other 50% of like King for a Day.
Okay,
it's all bass heavy and. He's got the vocalist Ephraim Schultz, who is, again, so I'd kind of forgotten about Death by Stereo until a few years ago. They played at the Underworld supporting Ignite or maybe Doyle. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was around the time I saw those guys. So the Doyle solo thing, or Doyle's band, or I think it was Ignite. I'm pretty sure it was Ignite. Yeah. Anyway, they played and they were and I was like, oh my God, it's bloody Death. They're still a band. Death by Stereo are here and they're playing. They're amazing. And they ended on a cover of Rain in Blood. Right? Full blown, actual straight cover of Rain in Blood. Fucking epitaph punk band. That's cool. And I just thought that attitude of just being like, yeah, we all know what Rain in Blood is, right? And I just thought that attitude, and it's all over this record, that kind of like weird time signatures, weird drum parts. You know, Ephraim Schultz, the vocalist, does these kind of weird voices.
Yeah, his delivery is sort of awesome. I think Patton-esque is going quite a way.
For punk rock.
Okay.
For punk rock.
Okay. I like you, so I don't want to disagree too much, but sure.
You know what I'm saying, though? I'm not saying he goes into like these weird high-pitched parts that Patton does, or has a bit, but he croons and then he goes low and he goes high and then he screams and he's. You know, I think he has
a great delivery. I didn't get Patton from listening to it myself. Now that you've said it, I'm like, yeah. Sorry. I think there's some great stuff on this. 91, great song. Mm-hmm. I think the end riff to that song, Getting It Off My Chest, is brilliant. There's some awesome bits on this record. Yeah. It's super fast and quick. It's like, 27 minutes, if that.
About, I think it does tick over the half an hour.
I think it does, but there's like shitloads of silence at the end. So I think actually musically, I think it probably is like 25 minutes. It's super, super fast. It's very difficult to get bored or anything like that. I think it's
weird. I just remember like you press No Shirt, No Shoes, No Salvation, the first song. Yeah. I don't want to give, I don't want to die. Like that. It's just fucking mad. I remember putting it on and being like, this is mad. This is all over the fucking place. It was just like, you know, it was at a time where, I mean, you mentioned Planes Forsaken for Stars. Yeah. And small, you know, again, to me, a very, very exciting period in the sort of punk rock, because skate punk had sort of was morphing more into pop punk, and yet there are a bunch of bands who weren't really hardcore bands, weren't really emo bands, and then they certainly weren't pop punk bands who sort of sprung up. I mean, Boy Sets Fire would end more into even Boy Sets Fire were a weird band that didn't really fit particularly anywhere, and Death by Stereo were one, and then you had stuff like you said, Planes Forsaken for Stars, or Small Brown Bike, or Hot Water Music. Yeah. You know, that kind of stuff was starting to happen, and it was all really, really exciting. Like, you know, No Division by Hot Water Music came out, and I was like, oh my God, I love this so much. And then I guess Rival Schools as well came after, just a bit more into emo.
Rival Schools.
Yeah, so amazing. And there were all these bands, but Death by Stereo just felt like the maddest, weirdest, like, you know, As Friends Rust, and I said them earlier, Strike Anywhere as well. Mm-hmm. There were loads of these just like Propaganda. I remember Propaganda bringing out like Tomorrow's Ashes, Yesterday's Empire, which is a fucking great record. Yeah. And there was just so many of these brilliant records, but Death by Stereo just felt like the most lunatic one. I remember getting this album and being like, they're mad. This is it's the wildest one. Like, and I love all those bands. I love all those bands. But this album just was really fucking wild to me. I love it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't get it. And I don't know if it's a production thing, but then at the same time, you know, I am well versed enough in this style of production to be able to kind of, I think, filter it out and go, okay, I know that this doesn't quite hit in the way that it should do. You know. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I mean, you have just named a whole bunch of bands who I fucking love. Hot Water Music, Rival Schools. That first Rival Schools
they're very
album.
different to all those bands.
Yeah.
I would much be closer to putting these in with. Not really any of them, really. Like, sound-wise, I think they just... A Veil would be... I mean, A Veil were far more straightforward to me than this. And I fucking love A Veil. Planes Forsaken for Stars, again, you know, much more just... straight down far more straight down the line. The only one where I go, oh, you're a bit weird. And you're like, Boy Sets Fire are the only one, and only because Boy Sets Fire, you know, brought a lot of the sort of thing we were talking about with the Menzingers, that kind of Heartland, Springsteen-y, melodic
as
vocal
does Hot Water Music.
Stuff. Yeah, which Hot Water Music does as well. But I think Boy Sets Fire were heavier when they were heavy.
Yep.
Than Hot Water Music.
Yep.
But to me, Death by Stereo were like this kind of weird, and you watch them live as well, and they're almost cartoony, and they're not wacky. I'm not going to use wacky.
No, don't use wacky.
But they're larger than life, and I just thought they were a very, very cool, interesting addition to that scene at that time, which is full of bands like you say who are all fucking great.
Maybe I needed to see him live. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't get weird from this record. It felt fairly straight down the line to me. It didn't feel miles different from a lot of, I keep saying 90s hardcore, and I do appreciate this is 2001, but it felt very 90s hardcore. It felt very 90s hardcore to me, and not
until August anyway.
Not a bad example of it. Just I was like, yeah, this is another. I was trying to figure out on my second or third listen. I was like, why have you given this? I'm not sure why you've given it to me, and I could only ascertain that you absolutely love it.
I do, man. I fucking do. I really do.
I think it's alright.
I think it's fucking great.
I mean,
again, great.
I would disagree in terms of maybe Planes Mistaken for Stars. Planes Mistaken for Stars are coming back to London this year, and I cannot wait. But Planes were the band for me with this kind of thing. Yeah, I fucking love them.
That first album is in that record shop around the corner from me. They've got that first album on vinyl.
EP, the self-titled.
Yeah.
Copper and Stars.
Yeah, they've got that. See, they're a band who I was always like, yeah, this band are pretty good, but I was never mad about them. So it's a sort of switcheroo, yeah. Anyway, Death by Stereo, still a band. Go and listen to them. Go and listen to something of theirs. Yep. Fuck me.
And then
sorry I got your name wrong, guys, but I hope I've made up for it now. And I think you're really, really good. So, whatever. Renfrey, you gave me Sunny Day Real Estate's How It Feels to Be Something On.
Yes.
From 1998, the comeback album that nearly made Foo Fighters bass player Nate Mendel leave the Foo Fighters and rejoin his original band.
Yeah.
So I guess a bit of backstory first. Sunny Day Real Estate split in 1995 during the recording of their self-titled or LP2.
Just prior to LP2.
Yeah, but still kind of got it out. At that point, I'm not sure how influential or cult a band Sunny Day Real Estate really were.
No, it feels like they were one of those bands that people pretend they saw back in the day, but I don't think they did.
Build. I think probably the Foo Fighters connection would have definitely moved that on.
I will confess, I got kind of the Shape and Foo Fighters, and then heard that their bassist and drummer, although obviously William Goldsmith isn't on Colin the Shape that much, we'll talk about that in a bit, were in Sunny Day Real Estate. I was like, I might check out that band, and mind blown. Right, okay. It's an interesting one, that, because I very much like, again, talking about a good era for this stuff, Sunny Day Real Estate are a band who, for me, I'll ask you why you gave me this particular record in a minute, but one would think Diary would be the record that most people... Diary is usually, very frustratingly for me, Sunny Day Real Estate, by those who do know them, which it does feel like aren't very many people, but by those who do, people talk about Diary and little else from Sunny Day Real Estate.
Diary is the 8th biggest selling sub-pop record.
I know. Bunkers. Deservedly so. Diary's a fucking wicked record.
Mate, it's great. And so for me, when I started getting, it was a few years after the event that I got into, I think I got Sensefield, one of the first ones I got, but loving early Jimmy Eat World, Texas is the Reason, Quicksand, those kind of bands.
Emo before it was emo.
Yeah. Sunny Day Real Estate were a band who, I thought, well, I have a sort of duty to go and find this band. And I got Diary. And I can absolutely, completely understand why Diary is considered the classic, the one that people talk about. When they came back in, when was it, 2005, 2006?
Oh.
They played 7 on the Jimmy Fallon show.
Right.
So... was it? Yeah, it was one of those talk shows when they came back. They played 7, and you go, well, yeah, obviously you're going to play something from Diary.
Yeah. I will say when they came back, they played the Forum in London, 2,000 cap, supported by Biffy Clyro.
Fucking hell, wow.
Yeah, and fair play to Biffy Clyro. Biffy Clyro were a big deal when they came. I think this was like 2010, actually. I think it was a bit later than 2006. But they came back and, Biffy Clyro were like Puzzle or on Only Revolutions or something like that. But they were like, we love Sunnydale Real Estate so much, we will come and be a surprise support for you. Yeah. And to be... I got there halfway through Biffy Clyro and I was like, can't believe this, whoever this band are covering mountains, they're brave. And then I looked up, I was like, it's fucking Biffy Clyro, and I like run to the front. Very few people seemed to care, it seemed, but I thought it was pretty cool to see Biffy Clyro in a small venue at that point. But yes.
So why, Renfrey, have you given me the comeback album? So Stony Real Estate split and then they got back together.
It's weird to call it a comeback album when they split in... I don't disagree with you, but it's weird to call it a comeback album when they split in 95 and then this album came out in 98.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
But basically what happened is Jeremy Einig, it's Enigk, I believe. And I've never... Enigd.
Oh, fucking hell.
I don't know. He... found Jesus.
Yeah, okay. So he was also recording a solo album.
Yes, called Return of the Frog Queen, which is very good.
Yes, and a lot of these songs apparently were intended for that solo album as well.
Yes, doesn't surprise me.
But it's also the first time he'd ever written anything on his own. So previously, Sunnydale Real Estate were a band whose albums were written collaboratively.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And this isn't so much.
There was a very, very different feel with this album, and I think their last album, The Rising Tide, as well. I don't know if you're familiar with that record.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent record. I mean, I personally don't think Sunnydale Real Estate have released a bad album. I think they're all masterpieces. I suppose I've given you this because... it's not only my favourite Sunnydale Real Estate album, I think it's one of the best albums ever written. I adore this record. And I adore it because it's so... it is interesting that they were written for a solo record because unlike Diary and LP2, for example, there's very little distortion used on this record. The manner in which... it breathes, this record, almost in like a talk manner. It's all kind of clean guitars and lots of reverb and so on and so forth, and builds and swells. And they were a 3-piece at this point. I think that's true.
He played a bass a bit. Yeah, he had to play bass for a bit of this, but they actually... Right. So the bassist was... Hold on, let me get his name up. Jeff Palmer stepped in for Nate Mendel when they started to record it, and then left almost immediately, and he was replaced by the late Joe Skyward. But other than that, it is the classic lineup.
Yeah. I mean, the bass on this record is unbelievable. The bass actually... is the sort of anchor of most of the songs. Most of what you would kind of consider the riffs are played on bass, and then the guitars are just sort of doing gentle things over the top for the most part. If you kind of look at a song like Pillars or even Roses in Water, it's just this really bizarre, odd little song which has this weird falsetto throughout. It has this really weird... It's such a weird song structure for a song, Pillars in Water. It's kind of like chorus, outro. That's how the song goes. And I love the manner in which this record sort of organically, as it says, organically breathes. I think it's a beautiful, brilliantly composed and put together record. I think every song is a 10 out of 10, bar Days Were Golden, which I'd give a 9. I just adore it. And I remember buying it I'd bought Diary and LP2 first.
I was going to ask you when you first heard this, actually.
It would have been around 2001, 2002, I reckon. So got into, loved those first 3 Foo Fighters records and just kind of doing a bit more research and reading the liner notes of the albums. And I think there's a mention of Sunnydale Real Estate in The Colour and the Shape, or maybe I just read it on a blog post or something. I don't know, but I discovered that two of the people on Colour and the Shape were in Sunnydale Real Estate, and that just made me want to check them out. So got Diary and LP2, which at that time were the only albums that were easy to get hold of. How It Feels to Be Something On was just a fucking nightmare to get hold of. It was really, really, really difficult. And then I eventually...
To back you up on this just quickly, it was that difficult that it was when downloading came in that I first heard this record.
Right, yeah. Well, I remember buying it probably on Amazon on import for a disgusting amount of money because I really loved Diary and LP2. I really loved them. And so to have an album come through, which, no one really talked about, and then I love it even more than Diary and LP2, which I already had really cherished and taken to my heart, was such a shock and such a surprise. And, this is around the age where I was falling in love for the first time, and I put compilations together and songs from this. Every Shining Time You Arrive has appeared on pretty much every compilation I've ever made for a girl. This, I don't know what it is, but I just think this album is utterly transcendental and beautiful. I don't think there's another album that's quite like it.
Maybe. I'm trying to think of something that does really... I think... So, do you want to know what I think?
I'm a bit scared, but go on.
Okay. So, I liked Diary.
Yeah.
Not as much as LP2. I think it's good. I think it's
you
good.
prefer LP2? Interesting.
No, I prefer Diary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had Diary and I was like, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
And then LP2 was harder to get hold of. It took me a long time to get it.
Yeah.
I like LP2. I thought it was really good. But I was already firmly Diary's great. A lot of those bands, interestingly, I like Slip and I didn't care so much for Manic Compression back in the day when I got Quicksand. A lot, Texas is Reason got one album. I love that one album. I found myself in a position where... But even Hot Water Music, that we mentioned before, No Division I loved, and then Flight and a Crash came out, and I liked most of that. But after that, sort of Caution and stuff, and I was like, there are a lot of those bands who, even though I really, really love that style of music, I only really love one album, or maybe one or two albums.
Yes.
So,
Get Up Kids, I think you could probably...
Get Up Kids is an absolutely perfect...
The definitive example.
Probably the definitive example.
Yeah.
And Weezer as well.
I won't go that far, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Unfortunately. But yeah, so I feel like there are these bands who I have kind of one of their albums, I go, this is brilliant and this is what I love. Right? So, but when kind of downloading and stuff came in, you could go, well, I can have everything now. So I'd never bothered with this record before.
Oh, right. Had you not heard it at all before I gave it to you?
No, I had. I'd never bothered with this record during the kind of not... So, and then, fucking torrent sites and everything, and I had a 180 gig iPod, and I downloaded every single album that I'd ever wanted. So suddenly it's like, hello, I can have the Misfits for free, and I can have every Megadeth album, I can have every Led Zeppelin, I can have every... And I downloaded the entire Sunnydale Real Estate back catalogue, right? Which up at that point, I don't think they had a new album out, so I think it was...
Just the 3 albums.
The 2 extra. And I listened to this, and I have listened to it intermittently over a kind of, 3 or 4 year period post doing that. I can't remember the last time I listened to this record. I genuinely can't remember. Why I accepted it was not because I was like, oh yeah, we can just wang on about how great it is and how great Sunnydale Real Estate are. It's because I genuinely was like, fuck, I couldn't even tell you what this sounds like anymore. Because if I ever do listen to Sunnydale Real Estate, and to be honest, that isn't very often...
It's Diary.
Yeah, it is.
You're making me so nervous.
Yeah, and what I think is really, really interesting, going back to it, so before I get about how I feel about it, what I think about it is what an interesting fork in the road this album is.
Absolutely.
Because we are talking about like 4 years or 3 years between when Out of Driving comes out and suddenly emo is a thing, right?
Yep.
There was we've spoken about it before when we talk about Glassjaw, when we talk about Far, when we talk about, whoever else, Jimmy World nearly got dropped before Bleed American. Nearly got dropped from their record label.
I think they did.
In fact, actually, they did get dropped from their record label. So
when they demoed that album, they were unsigned.
Yeah. So emo was a thing that was
about to explode,
but really had no home in 1998. And I think,
which very quickly is actually one of the reasons why I think this record is so unique. But yeah,
and you can kind of see why two of the guys from Foo Fighters in 1998 coming back with their original band, and it sounding like, if it had sounded like Diary, you go, well, you might have kind of
capitalized
sped up
on
that process a little bit. Because you can see how, when you listen to Diary, you can understand why a mainstream audience would have been interested in stuff like Texas is a Reason and Sensefield and Diary, right? But with this, what you get is an album with much more introspection, far less catchy parts.
Absolutely.
Kind of oddly, quietly discordant at some points.
Quietly discordant with song titles like The Shark's Own Private Fuck.
Shark's Own Private Fuck, I was always like, that sounds like something. What does that sound like?
It sounds like another song from Diary.
It sounds like Breaking the Girl by Red Hot Chili Peppers. It does. I was like, oh my God, it sounds like fucking Breaking the Girl. It's been bugging me for years, and I just realised what it is. But when you talk about emo, particularly at that period, Rites of Spring and the kind of the influence of all that stuff, what you've got on this album, I was like, Jeff Buckley, Led Zeppelin, Beatles, Velvet Underground, prog rock, and I mean, Roses in the Water, Jane's Addiction. Like, do you know what I mean? And
love it.
So this is an incredibly interesting record, and it's one that has taken me this long to appreciate. Yeah, it's fucking great.
It is, really, isn't it? Isn't it? And no one talks about it, and I don't know why. I think it's
brilliant.
I think it's a masterpiece, and I think it really. I mean, I think everything you've just said is true. It's not immediate. It doesn't really have traditional hooks. It is really weird in lots of places, but it's so unlike anything that I've heard before or since. It's this little pocket it's this little 45-minute pocket that exists entirely on its own, even within Sunnydale Real Estate's catalogue and everything else. I mean, it's interesting going back to it the last few days. I mean, A, I've had a wonderful fucking time, and it's been quite a nice breather from like tech metal. But B, I'd mentioned Talk. I mean, do you like the Talk thing? I totally see now.
Sped up a little bit.
Yeah, Talk sped up and absolutely. But like, I think, all of those. Oh, I'm so happy. All of those things that you just said, Beatles, Jane's Addiction, it is all of those kind of things, and it just felt like Jeremy writing for himself. And I think all of those elements just
you understand it was originally going to be a solo album. I get that.
You do get that, and there's so little distortion on it. It occasionally comes on like on guitar in video games.
And the interesting thing, I mean, you mentioned it before as well, which I think we should probably talk about, the fact that he was a born again Christian at this point.
Yep.
Had come back as a born again Christian, and I think a lot of people. I was reading reviews and reading interviews from around the time and stuff.
Yeah.
And people are like, it's when they went. I don't think this album. I think this album is spiritual.
Rather,
but it's not explicitly dogmatic.
Yeah. Yes.
I think if you didn't know that he was a born again Christian,
you wouldn't have a clue.
You wouldn't know that. People are making out like, it's the religious album.
No,
it's fuck.
Nonsense.
It's not at all.
I mean, there's one song on it called "The Prophet," which has this like "Amorida" kind of thing, which is awesome. The way it builds, it's fucking brilliant. But it's not a overtly religious song.
I don't think it is.
No, not at all.
Lots of people have had songs Prophet in. But
exactly. Prophets of Rage. It must be a Christian band. And as I said, there is a song in it called The Shark's Own Private Fuck. which is not very religious in any way, shape or form. So yeah, people do kind of say that this is the religious album, but I just think that's nonsense. It's definitely spiritual. There is definitely a spiritual sense to it, undoubtedly.
More serene than they were before.
Yeah.
And it does. And if you know that, you go, oh, well, maybe that's why that's played into that. But in terms of it being like, you know, hello, please, can I get on your stereo and talk about Jesus Christ? That is not what this album is.
Absolutely not. And you're absolutely right. A lot of those reviews would have made out that is what it was. But it really wasn't at all.
I did read a couple. I think one of them might have been on Pitchfork. My first mistake. Pitchfork really liked it, but they were like, you know, it's really religious. And I was like, where?
Yeah, exactly. Where? You know, I mean, you know, you could, I don't know, you could decide that every shining time you arrive is about Jesus coming back from the dead, but it could also be a lovely song about seeing your girlfriend again.
Yeah, you can put any kind of meaning into fucking anything.
Exactly.
Like if you want to.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, you could do it. But yes.
I'm so happy you like this record.
Yeah, it's really good, man. It's really, really good.
I suppose you probably haven't listened to Diary since, but I
haven't listened to Diary since, actually. I listened to Diary, funnily enough, I listened to Diary today.
Lovely stuff. Am crazy for saying this album's better than Diary?
I think it is more. The thing is, I've had Diary since fucking 1997.
Diary's wonderful. Don't get me wrong; it's an incredible.
I think this album is. It's much more striking to listen to back to back, particularly within the context of the confines. I mean, I started this whole show by going, you know, the kings of emo throw their crown away, and I really do feel like that's what this is. I think it is odd that Sunny Day Real Estate could have kind of, you know, accelerated the growth of emo, but instead chose to go to basically back away from it and go, this has not got anything to do with us anymore. Yeah. Because even though it was a very, very kind of quite a small underground movement at the point this record came out, this has basically got nothing to do with emo at all, this record.
Not really.
And I think you listen to Diary and you go, oh yeah, it sounds a bit like all those bands I like. And aren't these songs great? You know? Whereas this, when I'm talking about Jeff Buckley or the Beatles and stuff, that is not what you think of when you think of emo. This is not Jimmy Eat World. This is not, you know, this is not the Promise Ring or, you know, Burning Airlines or something like that. It's not. So
it's I know you hate this term and I understand why, but this is their mature record, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
I know you hate that, but you know that would be a simple way of saying it.
Yeah,
I guess.
But anyway, it's really good.
Yeah.
Is it better? I'm not sure. It probably is, but it's more of an achievement than Diary. Anyway, next week, Renfrey, what are you going to give me?
I can't remember if I've ever.
Good. Oh, sorry, I thought it was it. I can't remember. All right, see you next week, guys.
I can't remember if I've ever given you Clint Mansell's soundtrack.
You haven't.
To The Fountain.
Oh, no, I've never heard that.
Lovely stuff.
Clint Mansell's The Fountain. I'm going to give you Roy Buchanan, Livestock.
Ooh.
From, I think my girlfriend's arrived here, and it's a recommendation from her dad. Are you there, darling? This is Mr. Johnston's given me this album to give to Renfrey. We good with that? Yeah. Got a thumbs up.
She's very happy about it.
Yeah, sounds good. Anyway, Livestock by Roy Buchanan and Clint Mansell's The Fountain soundtrack. That is going to be next week. And also next week, we're going to go now. Thanks to our friends at Musicism. Go to musicism.net. Next week, not only will we be doing that, finally, at last, 3 artists that have been gagging to be put in the same show together. Nick Cave, Lightning Bolt, and Baby Metal.
Can you imagine the collab album? Yeah. It would be amazing. I would listen to it.
You would listen to it, yeah.
Maybe only once.
Have to scrub your soul clean afterwards.
Can you imagine Nick Cave working with Baby Metal? That'd be amazing.
Can you imagine Lightning Bolt working with Baby Metal?
So excited about
Lightning Bolt and Nick Cave seem fine. I think Baby Metal are very much the outsiders.
I think Lightning Bolt and Nick Cave could make a very interesting record.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
And then some Japanese girls would shit all over it. Anyway, that's for next week. We will see you then to talk about, we're going to be fucking mad in it. But anyway.
It's great. And there's a new Nick Cave album. Yes.
Cracking.
Cracking.
Yeah, happy with that. Yeah, new Baby Metal.